Pressured, gets rid of it to a wide open RJ Maryland, still on his feet. Maryland to the house, touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Hampton wide open running, 30, 25, 20, 10, 5, touchdown Carolina.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Spencer Rattler wants to launch a deep one, and it is caught! Juice Wells all the way, touchdown Gamecocks. 72 yards.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Jenkins up the middle, no one home for Auburn. House call, touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This is going to be returnable for Cal. Out across the 20 and out into the open field. And all the way down the sideline. That's Odd. Jaden Odd, who's been returning kicks lately. Touchdown Cal.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Another carry for Damian Martinez. Cuts it back. Touchdown number 3.
Now here's David Smoke and Paul Catalina.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon, and we have an earlier guest than usually our first guest, like 3:30. Sometimes it can be earlier than that. Jake Trotter, ESPN, will join us in about 15 minutes. Good afternoon, David Smoke, Paul Catalina on the set, and also at 365 Sports Studio on the corner of MLK and Elm. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, dialing up all of what they do to make every day a great day with 365 Sports. Thanks to those of you already who have joined us, whether you're watching on YouTube, that's YouTube, 365 Sports, the chat room. You could also go to Twitter at 365 Sports YT. You can watch us there in Sikkim 365 app. Paul, it's me, but I thought Pitbull had passed his time. Is he still? I know he did the deal with Texas down in Austin, the SEC official day.
He's not Mr. Worldwide for no reason, Smokey. You don't just, stop being Mr. World. Like at night, he woke up in the morning and goes, you know what? I'm really just Mr. Local right now. No, he's Mr. Worldwide, and maybe he needs to get his name out there a little bit more. So. Good luck to Pitbull.
Well, Pitbull's in the news today in sports and college football because he is donating giving money to Florida International, $6 million over 5 years for the naming rights for Pitbull Stadium, with an option to extend to 10 years for $12 million. He received just over $600,000 last year when Texas's on-campus party occurred down on the campus in Austin and celebrating their move into the SEC. So Pitbull Stadium at Florida International. And good for him. I mean, He's got the money to spend. Maybe use that money from UT as a down payment.
They're going to get some Pitbull events there. And what in the contract says Pitbull adjacent artists, which I'm not sure what that means. Like who specifically is Pitbull adjacent? Like if you called up his agency and you're like, we'd like to book Pitbull. Like, listen, he's solid through the next 2 years. We have several Pitbull adjacent people, and here's the list. I don't know who those are, but I think it's cool. I think it's different. It's unique. And if you're going to have to start, getting it's $6 million over 5 years, what, $1.2 million a year? Something like that.
$1.2 million a year.
So that's $6 million over 5 years. And, if you need that kind of money, I think you can do some creative things. We've already seen celebrities like Jimmy Kimmel and Barstool and Snoop Dogg and people like that name bowl games, which I think runs a little cheaper for the title sponsor than $1.2 million, because that's for a lot of games and not just one. But Yeah, I think that you got to get creative. You got to keep coming up with ideas for a stadium. So if you have a celebrity who wants to name the stadium after himself, I say let it happen.
Will he sing Timber at the halftime performance or wherever concerts he does? I just was online. There's some of these songs that I've heard probably in a cycle or spin class, but other than that, it's not like I download that, and I'm not cool and hip like he is.
Knowing your spin teacher, as I do, I would say that's exactly and the only place you've ever heard them. Probably
has been. All right, so that's that. Good for FIU to get the money. Pitbull Stadium effective pretty darn quick. The Doak Walker Award watch list is out. The Big 12 with a nice chunk of running backs that are included in that list, including Texas Tech's Taj Brooks, Krosky Merritt, Arizona, Donaldson, a couple of players from West Virginia. There's Jaleem White at the bottom. Also DJ Giddens, K-State, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State, who I believe was the winner last year of the Doak Walker Award, R.J. Harvey of UCF, Hinshaw and Neal from KU, Martin, BYU, and Abu Sama III, who had a monster game at the end of last year in the snow, remember, from Iowa State, then Cam Scatabo, who we've talked about a little bit the last few days, from Arizona State.
I have no problem saying it that the deepest conference when it comes to running backs right now is the Big 12. I think that they've got the biggest list of the best ones. There's some good ones in the Big 10, obviously. I think this is maybe one of the first years, given some of the transition that's gone on, that the SEC maybe wouldn't be in first in that. They lost, look, the best running back in the country might be Quinshon Judkins, pound for pound, talent for talent. I don't know, he's in a timeshare up there with Travion Henderson, who's also excellent at Ohio State. But when you look at the pure depth of running backs, I think the Big 12 kind of has a corner on it right now.
Texas had a couple of names, C.J. Baxter, Jaden Blue, both of them dynamic. So they're on the list. But that's the list. Those are the names of players who are from the Big 12 who are a part of that list, but a bunch of names. There's literally probably 100 names that appear to be on that list. Let's do this one on the Freaks list. So Bruce Feldman will probably join us, I don't know what day, to come on and discuss his annual The Freaks list. This is something that doesn't mean you're just really good. There's a lot of something special about you, whether it's what you bench or what you do or what you can, how many, like for example, with Travis Hunter can play a couple of different positions. Here are the players from the Big 12 on the list, including Harbor's one from South Carolina. He's not a Big 12 player, but I'm putting up number one. Hunter at
back
2.
To back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Years, yeah.
I wonder how often that's happened since Feldman started that.
He said never.
Never, okay.
Yeah.
Then you have Dominic Orange from Iowa State, the defensive tackle, McMillan from Arizona, Corleone, who's battling the injury and rehab at Cincinnati, and then you have others, including Savanea, who's with Arizona, the offensive tackle, Monterey Baldwin, who can run like the wind, literally, Baylor wide receiver, Savion Williams, TCU. There's also Dingle from Cincinnati, Garrett Green, quarterback at West Virginia, Caleb Rogers, lineman from Tech, and then Ty French, the second player on the list, who is from West Virginia.
101 players total on the list, and there's some really interesting ones to go down. It's one of my favorite articles every single year. With Travis Hunter at number 2 and Nick Harbor the second year at number 1 shows you how ridiculous an athlete and big. Nick Harbor's a wide receiver, but he's built like 2 of them standing on top of each other.
He's 6'5", 242.
Yeah.
And a sophomore.
Yeah.
He just turned 19.
And track speed.
Yeah.
Like
10-1, 20, yeah, 10-100. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's got track speed, and curious to see how Shane Beamer gets him involved in the offense this year. And of course, Travis Hunter, I mean, the amount he's able to play, even if he sucked at being one of those things.
Which he does not.
Which he does not. That he's out there doing it as many plays as he is unbelievable.
Yeah. There's a lot of names. 101, as you mentioned. I'm going to go over this list. It might drop you all to faint after. These are the schools that are FCS or other, included in the top 100. I didn't ask Garrett to put the list out because it's monstrous, but listen to these schools. And this is what I love about the list. It's not just the Power Four or whatever you want to say. James Madison, East Carolina, William and Mary, Appalachian State, Navy, 2 from Texas State, 2 from Toledo, Boise State, Marshall, Tulane, Wyoming had 2, Central Arkansas, Georgia Southern, Montana State, Carson Newman, Florida A&M. I'm not done. Buffalo, Elon, Sacramento State, Delaware, Portland State, Florida Atlantic, North Dakota State, UTSA, UT Chattanooga, and Miami of Ohio. That is probably a good 30 or so names that are also a part of the top 101 freaks list from Bruce Feldman. Texas A&M linebacker, he played high school ball here in Central Texas. Torian York is going to be the one that wears the defensive helmet communication device for the Aggies. That's according to Jay Bateman, the defensive coordinator. This is a young man as a freshman, went on campus, became a baller, and also a tremendous leader where there was a lot of dysfunction at times within Texas A&M, and Torian York, good for him, has been like a beacon in the light and done a great job his first year at A&M.
They've needed their Brian Gamble, their Dat Wynn, their Quentin Coriat. I think this would be fun one day to do an exercise. When you think of a school, what position do you think of first? And I think for Texas A&M, even though the person you might think of first is Johnny Manziel, but if you think about the volume of position and what their identity has been, even from when they weren't as good, but let's just say from Jackie Sherrill on, I would say linebacker is that position. At their best, they always had elite linebackers or guys who were just involved in every single play, like Dat was. Torian York kind of is the intersection of that, where he is everything that everybody would ever want recruiting-wise. You know, he's not a diamond in the rough like Dat, you know, who just had an engine and athleticism that people didn't expect out of a guy his size and strength. But he is your prototypical linebacker, but he's got that heart of a lion that he's involved in all the plays. He's all over the place. He knows the defense really fast. It's a great, brilliant football mind for a young guy, and they have not had that identity for quite some time. I know people, will think of Miami being quarterback U back in the 80s, but I think of defensive linemen when I think of Miami.
Yeah. And that was the separation, which what Miami did led to what the SEC started to accumulate and also grab as they started loading up their rosters and the difference in what they do on defense. And Dave Aranda told me that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Texas is running backs to me.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Or DBs.
Yeah.
They've had. But now, before we get to the Iowa State story, here's the top 10 players. This is according to NFL.com. In the NFL from A&M, linebacker, Leroy Caffey. Sam Adams, defensive line. Charlie Kruger, defensive line.
He's a friend of my
Aaron
father's.
Glein, cornerback. I've lost him here. Where'd we go? Lost somebody there. Jacob Green, defensive line. Richmond Webb, offensive tackle. Ray Childress, defensive line. Jack Pardee, there we go, linebacker. Came out of a six-man football at Cristobal. And then let's see who else they have. Lester Hayes at corner. Always forget sometimes about the attachment to A&M. And then Yale Larry, a defensive back. So, yeah, they got some linebackers. That doesn't even include Myles Garrett. This is an older list. Or Quentin Coriat.
Kevin Smith.
Dat Wynn. Kevin Smith, who was a hell of a player to steal for the Cowboys. When we come back, Jake Trotter from ESPN. We'll get into him. Also, an interesting NIL collective for Iowa State. We'll get to that, too. David Smoke with Paul Catalina. Thank you for being a part of what we do every afternoon, 3 to 6, 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental. Dr. Steve Childress is my dentist. I'm happy he is because he's allowed me to have a big stress off my mind. I still have some major dental work that I need to get done for my front bridge to make sure it's there forever. After it, popped a little bit, what was it, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and Dr. Childress is able to fit me with what I need for right now. But he's really kind of taken care of, he has taken care of making sure I understand why things happen. When it comes to dental work, why, sometimes you just maybe lose the lottery and you're going to have some things in cavities and issues that just happen. But mine were self-inflicted. Mine were sweets, lozenges. And it was horrible. Lots and lots of Diet Coke. So he gave me a game plan, helped me get focused on why I'm having to have cavities or root canals or a tooth or two pulled, etc. And I've been sticking to that pretty much all the time. Dr. Steve Childress, you call up or they call you. It's such an easy to get an appointment. When you walk in the door, they're ready for you. You either walk through the right door, which is what I usually do, or the one on the left. They have numerous dentists, 5 of them, I believe, total, along with the tech specialist and hygienist, too. Dr. Steve Childress, proud to say he's my dentist. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Last call before football. This is Mike Mosel from the Baylor Club inviting you to our biggest membership open house of the year. Join us on August 8th from 5 to 8 p.m. for a thrilling, family-friendly evening with aerialists, magicians, live music, and special guest appearances, including the Baylor Spirit Squad. Sample game day bites, savor spirit tastings, and explore local vendors, all for free. Come learn about the benefits of Baylor Club membership, plus exclusive offers for those who join the club that night. For tickets, visit our Facebook page or call 254-710-8080 today. See you at the Baylor Club August 8th and Sic 'em Bears.
Make this the summer of Ram at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home in a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star for just 2.9% for 72 months with no payments for 90 days. Plus, first responders get an extra $500 off at Allen Samuels.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Pluto 2363. Not sure if he was the same one that asked yesterday about Craig, who's not here. That's why I'm on the set. That's the only time I'm allowed to be on the set. Otherwise, I'm stuck over in the timeout corner. He's on vacation throughout the week, just decompressing. And I saw him yesterday after the show, and he's going to enjoy every bit of being off. Well, what's it, 9 days with 2 weekends, and then, of course, the full week of this week. This is one story. Paul's working on getting Jake Trotter locked in. Iowa State, We Will NIL Collective announces a $300,000 contribution from Elite Casino Resorts. Excited about the partnership. I'm glad. I'm happy. Good for them. But wasn't Iowa State, weren't they also, along with Iowa, one of those caught up in that gambling investigation?
Yeah, this is one where, like, I understand everybody trying, especially if you're not in the, per se, big two
trying to find money. But this is also one of those where when you have a situation unfold the way you did for both of those programs, it's kind of a slippery slope, or I don't necessarily like counterproductive, but it's weird that you're going to hold people accountable for things that you didn't properly investigate for gambling and then magically bring them on to be a sponsor. It's kind of the weird thing of where we're at right now in college athletics. But, I mean, you got to get used to it, right? Because this is the new norm.
No, you got to find it. Now, I did not get a chance to reach out to a really good friend of mine who's at Iowa State, and Nick Jose. I probably should have done that. Just because of that. This is going to be a paid page, isn't it? Okay. All right, this is from the IRGC does not currently have any information that would call into question the integrity of any sports wagering contest or event involving Iowa or Iowa State, they said in a news conference. So there we are with that, and that's not even current. So I was trying to find out the reaction. I also believe that a lot of that turned out to be a lot less than perhaps, oh my God, you've got student athletes at college at Iowa State and Iowa who are a part of the gambling issue. So I'm happy for them. $300,000, $300 here. Think about FIU, $6 million for a 5-year deal with Pitbull, the entertainer who now puts his name on the stadium. That's $6 million. Perhaps they could have sold that to somebody else, a business in that area. But now they have money that's locked in from a guy that's got all the money you would ever need, so you feel pretty good about it. And you wonder, will that start a trend?
Oh, I'm sure.
With Pitbull's name on a stadium, will that start a trend where you have other entertainers attached to stadium names? I don't think there's any of that right now.
No, but I don't think that, especially if you had somebody who was enthusiastic enough to do it, to put it on there. And look, the FIU stadium goes for $6 million, but UCF probably goes for a little bit more. And Florida State, Miami would go. Well, Miami already has one in Hard Rock. They're not in their own stadium. But if you were going to say, okay, what's going to cost for me to put my name on the big house? Well, more than $6 million. So, and that's over 5 years. So everything has a cost, right? And it's different, but
I want to go back.
Did you text Jake or you want me to?
Yeah, I did. I just did. I gave him your number too, so for him to call. Here's what they said, by the way. Back to that freaks list with Travis Hunter of Colorado, number 2. Coaches have described him as a unicorn for the seemingly effortless way he can handle insane workloads. Goes both ways on the field and also even special teams, by the way, not just offense and defense, and still makes big plays. He won the Paul Hornung Award for the most versatile player. He's on that watch list already this year. Real Analytics gauged Hunter's max speed on a touchdown-saving chase down against TCU at 21.2 miles per hour. On his 81st snap of that game in nearly 100-degree heat in Texas, up in Fort Worth, he displayed closing speeds of 6.9 yards per second on a diving red zone interception against TCU midway through the third quarter, and also was the second fastest time on record for nearly 8,400 defensive backs in the Real Analytics database. Deion Sanders, of course, was as fast as I've ever seen as a cornerback and football player. Also knows that Hunter is a very rare talent. So there we are with a description of Travis Hunter. I saw there's a lot of guys from Michigan on this list.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised.
You hear about how they've lost. They lost a lot of players on offense, and then how their defense is really, really good. And now, of course, whatever this cloud again that is kind of come back over their head with whatever it's going to mean. I think the football team will just, if they could handle it like last year's team, it never really got in the way. At least we don't think it did. But I'm telling you right now, I've got Texas winning the game in Ann Arbor because they're loaded too, even though they lost a lot of players. But Michigan has a bunch of players that are a really good team on defense.
I just would be nervous
Welcome into Paul Catalina.
I would just be nervous about the trenches there. I don't think Texas can hang with Michigan in the trenches.
On the offense and defensive line?
This year. I don't.
Huh. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, there's no gigantic dude named Sweat and other gigantic dude named Murphy. Now, they've got some gigantic dudes there, but it's not quite the same.
We'll see what happens when they play each other early. Jake, thanks for your time. Jake Trotter, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports. We were bringing this up. Michigan, and they got this allegations and whatever else, the story that came out with ESPN yesterday. But they seem to be having people sleep on them. What would be more of a concern if you were to look at them, Jake, that Harbaugh's gone or that they lost so much talent on offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think combination of both, and we'll have to see what happens with the NCAA. It's too soon to speculate how that might impact their season. But, on the field, they've got All-Americans defensively. I think they're going to be really tough on defense again. And then offensively, I think they're going to be able to run the ball. The question is, who plays quarterback? And I think they have a true multi-tiered quarterback battle happening right now. I was at their spring game a couple of months ago, and even being there, it was unclear who the 2 or 3 favorites would even be. I mean, I think it really is a true 3-4 man competition, and we might not know who's starting until Michigan takes the field in the opener. If they can get enough out of the passing game, could this be a team that goes 9-3? I don't think that's completely unrealistic. And, you go 9-3, 10-2 in the Big Ten, guess what? In the 12-team playoff era, you are probably going to get into the playoffs. And 9-3, you're going to have a pretty good case. So I don't think Michigan should be a team that anybody sleeps on. We'll get a good indication of what they're going to be in that week 2 showdown against Texas. If they don't have to win that game, and I think if they hang tough, that's going to be a good sign for them going forward. If they get blown out, maybe we'll look at them a little bit differently. But it won't take long for us to get a good barometer of what kind of Michigan team this is going to be without J.J. McCarthy, without Jim Harbaugh.
Jake, the NCAA thing is still nebulous of what's going to happen with them. Last year they were able to compartmentalize and put it away. Do you think they can keep doing that, or is this now where it kind of needs to get answered so they can figure out how they're going to move on from it?
They dealt with it pretty well last year. They won games when Harbaugh was suspended, and then they came back and were dominant in the playoffs. It is going to be interesting to see how Sharon handles this, especially if he winds up being implicated or even suspended. But, you got to think that, especially the upperclassmen on this team, they're used to this. And, they have dealt with it before. So, it could even be a galvanizing thing for them, like it was last year.
You mentioned Ohio State, Ryan Day, talking about Will Howard, who came in. I'm not going to say he was pudgy, but he was a little heavy, and he's now slimmed down. How much do you feel like the loss of weight has made him even more effective and should help him out this season?
Yeah, they were very excited about the shape he came back in. And, Ryan Day said it on the first day of practice. We challenged him. We didn't think he was in the shape he needed to be. And with Chip Kelly, they're going to run the quarterback. That's something that they really want to do that they were not able to with Kyle McCord last year. And, I was at the first day of practice, and he did look quick. He looked a little bit different than he did in the spring game when he really didn't stand out, at least, physically with his speed, like maybe he had at times at Kansas State. He doesn't have to be a superstar for them to win the national championship and definitely win the Big Ten and make the playoffs, because he's got so much talent around him, and the defense is going to be great again. But, he has to give them something and more than they got last year. And I think his ability to run the ball is going to be a big key in that. Can he keep defenses honest? And can he manufacture some plays with his wheels, which, they were not able to get out of the quarterback last year?
Jake, he might be the least talented player on that team, and I'm not even saying that to knock him. They're just loaded. He doesn't I think his quote was, he doesn't have to be Superman to lead the team, and he's certainly landed in a very good spot roster-wise.
I mean, they've got arguably the best receiving core in the country with Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith, who, if you haven't heard of yet, you will soon. Probably going to be, one of the top freshmen in the country. They're talking about him like he's going to be the next big thing there. And they've had some big things at receiver in recent years. They probably got, the best running back duo in the country. They're going to be able to run the ball. The offensive line is a question mark, but overall, they're as loaded as anybody in college football. And again, he doesn't have, I wouldn't say that he needs to be a game manager. He's going to have to make some plays, against the Oregons and the Michigans and in the playoffs of the world, but he doesn't have to be Caleb Williams either for them to be really good. And I think he recognizes that. And, he's experienced, he's played a lot of football, set records at Kansas State. And I think they're really attracted to the experience he's going to bring when everything else on the roster seems to be in place.
We have Ryan Abraham, who covers USC with, I guess it's USAFootball.com. USC did not hire Lincoln Riley to be a team that is somewhat overlooked right now, or a program overlooked right now, did they?
Well, and Lincoln brought this up during Big Ten Media Days, and, he's not wrong in that they had a long way to go when he arrived. I mean, Caleb Williams overshadowed a lot of what they needed to do from a depth, from a defensive talent, defensive identity standpoint, and really in the trenches matching up physically as well. Now, they don't have Caleb Williams, and they're moving into the Big Ten. And physically, I'm a little bit dubious about them matching up week to week. So we're going to find out a lot about Lincoln Riley this year. I think they've got to take a step in the right direction. They can't go 5-7 in the Big Ten. I think that would show some real issues with this program going forward. But if they can go 7-5, 8-4, I think that'd be a perfectly reasonable season in kind of a transition year for them. And I think that would give USC fans optimism that they could finally begin to turn it around there.
A lot has been made, and I've talked about a lot about how the Big Ten, is going to be different because it's got teams with all these different styles that they haven't seen before or as much coming in, and how that will affect, say, teams like Iowa or Minnesota. But also, is there does the door swing the other way in that, a USC, a UCLA, or something like that, they haven't necessarily seen the week in, week out styles that they're going to face in the Big Ten either?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we have not seen really outside the Johnny Manziel year in 2012 a team and then just have instant continued success. And A&M, of course, came back to earth pretty quickly in the SEC. It takes a little bit of an adjustment period, to readjust to what you're seeing week in, week out. And it's not even so much dealing with the physicality of Ohio State and Michigan, although that's going to be a huge challenge for USC. It's dealing with the physicality of Wisconsin and Iowa and teams like that, where, you're not maybe used to that week in, week out in the Pac-12. So it's going to be a huge test for USC. And, they've got to travel a bunch this year. They've got some big road trips. That's going to wear them down as well. I think that's one of the reasons why, 6-6, 7-5 is kind of realistic for USC this year.
How many of the 12 college football playoff teams come out of the SEC, in your opinion?
I would say I would put the over-under at 3.5. That's probably, because 4, that's a lot, even though all the reputations and the power, et cetera, that's still a pretty good chunk to get 4, a third of the teams. It is. I think that, we'll see what happens with Notre Dame, right? If they make it, that's going to take up a spot. I think the Big Ten safely is going to get 2 or 3, probably more 3 than 2. So now we're looking at 3 or 4. Obviously, you've got the Big 12, the ACC, the Group of 5, 5, 6, 7. There's still 4 spots there, that the SEC could claim. And, this is a pretty good year for the SEC on paper going into the season. It's going to take, somebody from the Big 12 winning a massive non-conference game. It's going to take somebody from the ACC winning a massive non-conference game, I think, to change the impression of the conferences in the committee room this season. Not that it can't happen, and not that there's not going to be some deserving teams out of the Big 12 and ACC that don't win the conference title. But I would probably put, I think if the ACC and the Big 12 combined got 3, that wouldn't be – that might be about what people are thinking going into the season. So, again, I know – your listeners and people in the old Big 12 are not going to like to hear it, but they better get used to the idea of more than a couple SEC teams getting to the playoff, because that's what it looks like it's going to be.
Yep.
What do you think that there's a comparison between a 9-3 SEC season and a 10-2 ACC Big 12 season that it will be easy to judge fairly, or is that going to be where the rage will happen?
I think that's when the rage is going to happen. When a 9-3 SEC team gets into the playoff over like an 11-1 ACC or an 11-1 Big 12 non-conference champion. I think that's where the inflection point is going to be in the playoff discussion. So does does Ole Miss at 9-3 get in over Kansas State at 11-1 that maybe didn't make the Big 12 championship game, or lost the Big 12 championship game and went 11-2, something like that. And again, I think that's why it's going to be extremely important for the Big 12 to perform well in the non-conference. Like every marquee game, like they've got to win a lot of them, because that is something I think that's going to matter for the conference in terms of getting a second team in when the playoff committee deliberates. Now, it's great that the Big 12 doesn't have to completely rely on the committee. They can play their way in now. That wasn't always the case, obviously, before. But I think it's going to take a lot for the Big 12 and the ACC to get multiple teams in the playoff on an annual basis. I could be proven wrong. Like, we'll see. I'm just kind of, predicting what I think the playoff committee is going to do and how they're going to think about these different teams. And just, you look at Oklahoma, for example. They're playing the toughest schedule in the history of the program this year, at least on paper. They play, I think, 4 top 10 teams in the month of November. That didn't even include the Texas game. It's just different than what they've had to deal with before. And I think the committee is going to take things like that into consideration when it comes to measuring 9-3 SEC, 9-3 Big 10 versus, 10-2 Big 12, 10-2 ACC.
Jake, what was it like when you heard the news Max Olson's back at ESPN?
Very excited about it. I have known about it a while. We're getting the band back together. I worked with Max for several years when he was with ESPN. We did the Big 12 blog together back in the day. So talked to Max just a couple of days ago. He's excited to get started, and I'm very excited to work with him again.
Yeah, we had him on last week once it became official, and I know he's thrilled because also what ESPN is going to use what he does well, and the fact that he became a free agent was stunning. So it's a great pickup to get him back to ESPN. And I know that you were in the NFL for a while after being college football writer, but so after the first few weeks, what's it like? Are you kind of locked in kind of an adrenaline rush right now?
No, I'm really enjoying it. And there hasn't been one day where I was like, man, I wish I was in NFL training camp today. So I'm excited about the change. It's going great. It's a little bit of an adjustment for me because you think about what college football was when I was covering it in 2019. It is vastly different than it is today. But yeah, I'm having a blast. I grew up in college football country. I'm like you guys. I'm a college football guy. So I feel right at home, even though it is going to be a little bit of an adjustment period for me.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it for jumping on with us. Jake Trotter, ESPN college football writer. He was doing that, as he mentioned, with the Big 12 blog, among other things, and then went on to cover Cincinnati and others in the NFL with
the Browns.
The Browns, yeah. And so now back in college football, and ESPN picks up Max Olson and Jake Trotter. That's a pretty nice hit for them with what they have right now already within the staff. When we come back, Angelique Shengelis, Michigan, that's who she covers. We'll have Ryan Abraham on USC. We'll have Scott Doerman, who covers the Big Ten, Iowa too. And then we'll also today hear from Pete Samson, who covers Notre Dame and the loss of an offensive starter on the offensive line and more on them. This is 365 Sports.
Hey guys, Samantha here with Texas Beef House. Thank y'all so much for attending our online auction. This auction is going to last from August 7th to August 8th. We've got lots of great lots of Wagyu and Angus. We've got top sirloin, tri-tip, roast, short ribs, brisket, ground beef, hamburger patties, so many great things. So make sure that you're watching. And remember, we also end with a horse race finish, meaning in the last 2 minutes, if people are still bidding, the auction will stay open for 2 more minutes. So if there's a lot you're really wanting, you want to make sure you're on at the very end. And remember, at Texas Beef House, all auction items ship for free. So free shipping to the lower 48 states. Thanks for attending, and don't miss our next auction.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed. Smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon.
Next time you need to beat 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's Group meter.
Next in line.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Angelique Shingelis joins us, 365 Sports. She's had a pretty busy week this week away from college football. She's from the Detroit News, covers a lot of things, but Michigan. In fact, Angelique, thanks for your time. Before we get into everything, you have a book coming out, correct? In about a month, is that right?
I think that's about right. It's a book with Triumph Sports, the publishers out of Chicago, and it's just looking at the championship season, the 2023 season. Michigan versus everybody is the title, and I believe it comes out mid-September. It's August. You're right. Next month. I'm still thinking it's July.
You got like 6 weeks before it comes out. You mentioned Triumph Books. So that little scab kind of got peeled back a little bit lately in the last day or four. That should only help promote the book, by the way. How does that register in Ann Arbor, Michigan?
It's been interesting to see the reaction to it. I think that Michigan fans are also reacting to rival fans and how they're reacting, like Michigan State and Ohio State fans on social media. But I get the sense just from just doing a quick look at message boards that they're like, okay, what does this exactly prove? No one's connecting any dots here. The NCAA didn't say any of the coaches knew what Connor Stallions was doing, et cetera. And they're also kind of blowing past the level 2 that's levied against Sharon Moore, the current head coach, for deleting 52 texts. And some are saying, well, it's a thread. And I'm not getting into that semantics, like whether it's a thread or text. I mean, it's still 52 texts. And that they say, that they're innocuous. And I'm not sure who's saying that they're innocuous. I haven't seen the text. But, I think that everybody's just sort of looking past that. Now, I do think a couple of things that are mentioned later in the draft, like Steve Clinkscale helping a recruit set up an Instagram profile or what what are they called when they have the blue check mark? I think that's sort of petty. But, the other stuff is definitely worth, your attention.
Well, $100 to a golf tournament, given the fact that a free private jet ride to a college is legal now. So I think you're getting silly there. So if they do, I mean, they had a structure last year during Jim Harbaugh's first suspension where they rotated through who the head coaches were. And then, of course, Sharon Moore was the head coach down the line. But a lot of those guys are gone now. And off with the Chargers or somewhere else with Mike McDonald in Seattle. So they've got, more new coaches than they've had in a while. If they do have to deal with the suspension again, do you think that will hurt them more this year than it did last year?
Well, I do think it would hurt them more. And remember, last year's suspension at the start of the season was school imposed. I mean, that came from Ward Manuel, Michigan's athletic director, not from the NCAA. And, those are usually done to basically curry favor, if you will, with the NCAA later, like, hey, don't punish us too much because we did this in good faith. It went that far. And I think it's too early to guess what Michigan, how they might respond. And it's certainly too soon because a notice of allegation, and certainly not a draft of a notice of allegation, doesn't lay out potential penalties. And this was a level 2 that's levied against Sharon. So I'm not sure Michigan's going to look at it as seriously as the level 1 charge that Harbaugh faced for misleading and lying to the investigators. But, in a hypothetical, potential, it would be hard. I mean, I think, you look at this staff and you're right. It's so new on the defensive side. And I mean, you've got Wink Martindale, a 20-year NFL veteran now running the defense. But he hasn't been in college football in 20 years. And then you look at they've elevated Kirk Campbell, who was a quarterback coach last year, to offensive coordinator. Grant Newsome is a 20-something who's now the offensive line coach. Ron Bellamy's been there, former player, receivers coach. It would be really hard to figure out. I think you look at Tony Alford, the running backs coach who came over from Ohio State. You look at Wink because just the experience he's had at the NFL level. And a third person, I don't know. I mean, it's a really new, youngish staff, and I think it'd be really hard to figure that one out.
We've discussed this, and we've done it before when teams have at least been under the microscope of the NCAA, who obviously they don't have as much bite, nearly as much bite as they once did. It used to be if they called, it was like the IRS sending you a letter about an audit. Let's just say there are violations. And I've even seen, I'm totally against, Angelique, any kind of vacating of anything. They're the national champions, no matter what. I hate vacating any kind of wins or championships. What do you think in the end, if anything, might occur? Because I can't see a bowl ban, because to me that it's happened, but it doesn't seem to happen as much anymore.
You're correct. And, I go back to, I've had a couple conversations in the past year, as you can imagine, with lawyers who handle NCAA cases. One of them actually used to work for the NCAA. And what they pointed out to me, and I've seen the rule, and I know I have it somewhere in my phone, I have to go look for it, is that generally wins are not vacated unless there were ineligible players used. And that's not the case here. So I do think that the NCAA would steer away from that. In terms of postseason bans, you're also right. I mean, the NCAA really has made a point to move past that because, look, the CFP is not owned. The NCAA doesn't own the CFP. And the bowl situation is different than it was. I think you look at, if the NCAA is going to be punitive, and, you saw it with Tennessee, I think that you would slap a huge fine on Michigan, and you can't reduce scholarships because with NIL and stuff, that doesn't really matter anymore. You could reduce the roster number. I think that could be punitive. You know, you go from 105 to 95 or whatever it is they want to do. That would be tough for a team to deal with. But you're right in terms of vacating wins and postseason bans. I think that's not going to happen.
Angelique, this team on defense should be very, very good. Again, I mean, you know, Wink Martindale comes in, like you said, and then they still have a lot of those guys back, even though they did lose a lot of leadership and moxie and guys like Mike Sainrissil. But offensive is the question, and mostly because nobody has any idea at this point who the quarterback's going to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying, I know there's a lot of positive, Michigan fans who are making predictions 10-2. They're going to run it back, echoing what the players say. And I'm just not sure how you feel that confident when you don't have a quarterback in place. And you don't really have a big-time receiver. You have a couple of very capable receivers, but, I think they're lacking there. And the offensive line is going to be brand new. I mean, They lost 6 guys, got drafted. They went to the NFL last year off of that team. And, I think they brought in the guy, Josh Preeb from Northwestern, who was a captain. I think he'll be a very good piece for that offensive line. They're still trying to figure out who's going to start at center. I think that's also a very big competition to concern yourself with. But quarterback is huge. And I really think I just trying to look at this logically, and I think there was so much talk about Alex Orji coming out of camp, but Jack Tuttle, who is in his 7th year, he'll be 25, or maybe he is 25 already as the season nears. He's a guy who's had some starts. He was at Indiana. I could see them doing something like 2021, where you had Cade McNamara, guy who didn't make many mistakes, and I see sort of Jack Tuttle in that way. And then you have packages for Alex Orji like they did for J.J. McCarthy then. Davis Warren's also in the mix. I don't mean to not mention him, but it's going to be very interesting to see because that's absolutely critical. And as you know, I mean, they open with a tough game, Fresno State, and then Texas.
Yep.
And if you don't have your quarterback, if that's not settled yet, and it's possible they keep the competition going, I think that's trouble.
Yeah, no, I have to tell you, and I mentioned this earlier we had Jake Trotter from ESPN on. It seems like Michigan's getting respect, but they're overshadowed. And a lot of it's because, again, that Harbaugh's gone, the staff changes, et cetera, and they lost a lot of players to the NFL. Quarterback's gone. Is it dangerous? Is it a little bit dangerous to sleep on Michigan with Texas in that game early?
See, I don't think so, and maybe I'm more doom and gloom here. I see this team losing 3-4 games, and I have them. I'm actually going to start working on my game by game for our preview stuff, and I envision them losing that game to Texas. I think that Oregon's going to be tough. Ohio State certainly in Columbus. And I think that there's always a hiccup game possibility. Could it be at Illinois or against Minnesota? I mean, who knows? But there always seems to be that kind of possibility when you have a team with question marks. And I didn't think that about Michigan last year. I thought they were a very good team. They're very solid. And you're also right. Going back earlier, I mean, the defense is going to be very sound. I think they do lack depth at linebacker. I think that if they had an injury there, I think they would they'd see a little bit of a drop off there. But defense should be very good. Wink Martindale's definitely got a lot of attitude. Doesn't like when people compare him to Don Brown because of the whole blitz first mentality. So he's got an edge to him, but I don't think you're going to see that much difference with this defense. But to your point earlier, they lost a lot from that. And Mike Sainristil, that's a huge loss just in terms of everything he brought on every level.
Were you surprised to see how Jim Harbaugh answered the question yesterday? I mean, he's kind of backed himself into a corner if they find anything that has anything to do with him.
Yeah, no, that's true. And No, nothing surprises me that Jim Harbaugh says, and I thought actually when he left that I would have to. I no longer had to pay attention to what he said. I guess I still do, and I did see that quote, and it seemed very vintage Jim. But he's been consistent from the moment the investigation was launched in mid-October. He said he knew nothing about an illegal scouting, sign stealing scheme, and he's been consistent. And maybe he felt more confident based on that draft notice of allegations that didn't connect any dots to Connor. But part of it, there was the level ones are being levied because of lack of cooperation and not having conversations with the NCAA and perhaps not giving phone records, etc. But my understanding back when the NCAA started showing up on campus is that all of the coaches did turn in at least their business phones and iPads. So, maybe it's personal phones that they wanted and those weren't turned over. But, I don't think Jim says anything unless he feels very confident that he will be proven correct.
Yeah, these things like last year they fed off of this, and Harbaugh was the ringleader and helped that with his attitude. But you eventually wonder if it just kind of wears the program down. The kind of a cloud. Hey, I want to bring this up, and we've had you on many, many times, and you're our go-to when it comes to Michigan. There's a Reddit post about you, and it's just unbelievable. No, it's freaking great about the fact that you're one of the few credible left as far as in the newspaper business, not the newspaper business, but covering college sports. You've been on the beat since '92. Doesn't rush to report anything. I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah, no, sometimes you can Google your name and then duck.
She said she's got a Reddit post about it. She's like,
my God.
Dear, oh, man.
No, I wanted to bring this up for our audience to know this. For our audience to know this, that there's a bunch of people that respect a lot of what you do, your work, and we do too, and we're glad. So can you tell everybody, I don't want to get into do you want to share what you've been through in Cincinnati, Ohio? I think that's where you were the last 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, no, and I'll be going back again Friday. No, I appreciate what you said, and I did not know that, and that's very nice. And maybe it's just people respecting age, having been on the beat since 1992. That still cracks me. I think Sharon is the 6th head coach I've covered. I think I've lost count, but. No, my mom, who is 93 and a half, how little kids always say half. I think that's about right. She's been dealing with some health stuff, and, I got to get her healthy for the college football season because she has her very amusing insights into college football. And the way she makes good points. It's the way she gets to them. My favorite is always when she talks about the offensive line, and she calls it the line of offense or the defense of the offense. So, and it sounds goofy, but it actually makes sense. I guess that's what the offensive line does. But yeah, she's dealing with some stuff and trying to make her less stubborn about things. And I think people with older parents understand that it's not always easy. But I appreciate it. And hopefully she'll be good to go, by the time the football season starts, because she certainly enjoys it.
Yeah. And she needed you to come give her some truth serum, and I'm glad you were able to do that. Right. That's important. Angelique, thank you very much. Good luck with her and also the season and the book that's released here in just about 5 weeks. It's Angelique Shingella.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The Detroit News with us on 365 Sports. Triumph Books is, I think, release date is September 24th, which is about 5 or 6 weeks away. I got to tell you,
pre-order it now if you're a Michigan fan or just interested.
Jake Trotter. So we had him scheduled for 3:15, and we try to keep. We had RG3 one time right off the top, and there's been coaches that have joined us right off the top. So Jake Trotter sends me this note. I don't think he minds me. Sorry about that because we called him and he wasn't around. We had a tornado warning, and it's a bit of a mess. I said, oh, my goodness, did you suffer any damage? I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma, so not bad, but we had a tree crash into our fence, almost hit the house. Neighbor was trying to corral with me a patio furniture piece, which was flying away. So, when you call, and I try to do everything I can to make sure we got these people locked in, our guest numbers, right? I text them, and I'm like, Jake, you're the one and now there's always more than just what we want, right? And, man, the weather has been crazy. I've seen some of the flooding videos in the parts of Bradenton where my grandfather lived many years ago. Anna Maria Island, of course, Fort Myers and Naples have been crushed the last couple of years with it. My brother, Michael, now my oldest brother, lives in Tampa, just away from the airport, and there's a lot of flooding in his area too. So now that's gone. I talked to him yesterday, but
Tampa is protected by the bay.
Yeah, they're buffered by it. Yeah,
and
there's enough land between the east part of them towards the Gulf.
Yeah, that it's very weird. They're not immune to it, but of every city in Florida, you would think, and living there, look, you watch the maps, and half the time they're like, all right, Tampa residents, get ready. This is the one that's going to finally get us. And then the day of, you're like, oh, you missed us. This is one of my favorite stories. I had a friend who worked at a hotel near the water, and that's where Jim Cantori went to set up for the hurricane that day. And, he's the weather cowboy. I mean, he's the guy who's going to stand out in it and tie himself to a light pole and all that. Well, we still had really bad weather, but the good stuff for film went further south of us. And they said that Jim was beside himself with oh, man.
No, and you see these weather guys, they go down to the coast, whether it's here and it's almost like they want the app, I hope not, that it never happens, that somebody's live at one of these hurricanes or tropical storms which have high winds, and like a street sign severs their head off or something like that while they're live. I mean, that can happen. Or just some kind of a piece of wood off of a telephone pole, goes right through them. Michael DeHart, my eldest brother and his wife have a winter condo in Naples. They lucked out. They're on the 4th floor. That's great. It got it all over the place. The tornado, Paxton, and a lot of those in the West Texas Panhandle area have dealt with that. Of course, they've dealt with them in a lot of places, even here in Waco earlier this year. All right, coming up next, it is Ryan Abraham. It's been a while. He covers USC for USCFootball.com, one of our great guests that we have. A retired stockbroker, I'll bring it up. He said that McLean Stadium needs a bowl game. Don Shumador should sponsor it. They're a very small, great place, but a very small business. But I do want to bring it up. He texted me, hey, this was my comment. So I want to bring that up with our great friend, retired stockbroker. There's a picture of the Texas wall, by the way, at Don Shumador. We have them on a little bit later on. That's what Josh is doing. The owner, he bought it just, 2 months ago or so. All of these cigars on that wall are Texas-type brand of cigars. So they're Texas brand of cigars. And the other part of it is, Warfighter out of Schertz, Texas, which is just northeast of San Antonio, a combat veteran-owned and operated company with the cigars called Warfighter, also there. So thanks to Josh and Cheyenne. Thank you, Garrett. Great stuff. Put that up on 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Location just on the east side of I-35 and Loop 340 and Highway 6. Build it with steel. They have pipe, steel, and metal. Heavy-duty product. If you need to build something, you're going to need to find them if you haven't already. And most of the time, people go back and back and back and back. Generations of families and builders and contractors have gone to Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Metal shops to beautiful barn dominiums. Any type of metal project you have, Pioneer Steel and Pipe is there to help you make it a perfect type design and project. Building designs, panel options, building components, trim options, color options. That's for metal buildings and roofing. For pipe and steel, culverts, structural steel, purlin, tubing, beams and also weld plates, sheet and expanded metal, welding supplies, farm and ranch, hardware, paint, and tools. Man, it's been since 1943 when they opened up their doors, and now for almost a couple of years, their brand new, beautiful facility on the east of I-35, Loop 340, and also Highway 6 at pioneerboys.com.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels. Drive the all-new 2024 Grand Cherokee 4XE or Wrangler 4XE today. Lease payments start at just $589 a month or finance for 2.9% for 84 months. Experience legendary Jeep performance with cutting-edge hybrid technology. Hurry, only at Allen Samuels in Waco. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends. to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
You can go to Twitter to follow Ryan Abraham and his content, opinions, and more at Inside Troy, publisher, owner of USCFootball.com, Heisman voter, and he joins us. It's been a while, Ryan. Thanks for your time here with Paul and Smokey on 365 Sports. So is it fair to say that when USC hired Lincoln Riley, and obviously Caleb Williams and all that came with it, and they had a pretty fun first year, but they didn't hire him to be kind of stuck in neutral? Is that a concern right now, or is it going to just take time and maybe the first year with Caleb and company there was enough there?
No, I think it's a fair point. I mean, expectations after the 4-8 season when Lincoln Riley took over weren't super high. I think if they won 8 games in that year one and then won 11 in year two, things might look a little bit different. But coming out of the gate, winning 11 games and winning a Heisman Trophy, I think the expectations just got ratcheted up last year. And the way they finished the season, outside of the bowl game, it just was a disaster. And the defense was really bad for 2 years in a row. So I feel like Lincoln Riley had to come in and fix a lot of problems that were around this football program. But you expected more from last year, and I think the expectations going into year one of Big Ten play is going to be high as well. It's a really tough schedule. So I think this is a really important year for Lincoln Riley, but you're right. There's a little shine that's come off of it just because of the way they finished last year and maybe some of the comments he's made during the offseason as they're getting ready to start Big Ten play.
Do you think that the new defensive coordinator and the new players they have on defense can make an impact right away, or is this something that may take a minute?
I think so. So Danton Lynn comes over. He came to UCLA last year. from the Baltimore Ravens. And a lot of times you see NFL coaches come in and try to run an offense or a defense in college, and it doesn't work all that well because they're not used to, hey, you only got 20 hours a week with these guys and everything. But D'Anton was able to adapt really quickly. And I think UCLA was ranked in the 90s or so the year before he got there, pretty much the same personnel, and they were a top 20 type of a defense when he got there. So I think USC is hoping for some similar results. I think UCLA's defensive line talent was a little better than USC's, but USC's really deep in the secondary. They got a bunch of good linebackers. I think they have enough talent on the defensive side of the ball, especially some of the guys they've added. The weakness will probably be on that defensive line, but they're expecting D'Anton to be able to come in and kind of fix a lot of the schemes that were broken under Alex Grinch, and where guys were looking at their wristbands as the play clock was winding down and the balls being snapped. It just looked like chaos when USC was playing defense all last year, and they never really adjusted. I think the hope is that D'Anton can do that, and they can go from a really bad defense to at least like a mediocre defense and probably win a bunch more games.
Ryan, it seemed like Lincoln Riley at times is questioned for what he wants to do as far as strength of schedule. They're in the Big Ten. They're going to play people. They're going to end up playing a hard schedule. And they was asked about Notre Dame. I want you to make sure you clarify about Notre Dame, that history. And I remember, I go back to the days when Anthony Davis had 6 touchdowns in the early 70s, listening to the game while I was in Japan on the Far East Network radio outlet. Does he want to soften up their schedule or not?
I think it seems like from some of the comments he made that wouldn't be a terrible thing. But I feel like the way we are now in a expanded playoff, playing a very tough schedule doesn't hurt you as much because one loss isn't going to knock you out of the playoff. If you're at the Big Ten, you're in the SEC, top 3 or 4 teams are probably getting in every year. So, this year they're playing LSU and Notre Dame in the out-of-conference schedule. Yeah, it's really tough. But they do avoid Ohio State and Oregon in conference. So I feel like it's one of those things. I don't think the fan base would go for it if they were going to get rid of the Notre Dame game. It's got like 100 years of tradition, and that's one of the reasons when you go to play for USC is you get that game on the schedule every year. So I think a lot of coaches are trying to figure out, what's the best way to navigate this whole new world of college football. But I don't think it's going to be a situation where you need to sort of dumb down the schedule. Yeah, you'd like to have more home games and stuff, and you have a really tough conference schedule. But if you have a traditional game like that, I don't think you're going to see a lot of programs getting rid of those. And in some cases, I think you're going to add them back in. Now, we get like Texas A&M because of, conference realignment, but you might get some more of those happen too down the road. So we'll see. But I don't think USC is getting rid of that anytime soon.
Was the heat he took for the LSU game leak justified?
Oh, yeah. So that was a weird one. I mean, both the agents for both Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley are the same agent, and there was some talk that maybe that was sort of going behind the scenes where you don't want your clients playing each other or something like that. But we've seen, people try to get out of sort of games like this, and especially when you're replacing a quarterback. But it's funny because both of those teams have a lot of similarities. Losing a Heisman Trophy quarterback, and what you're trying to fix a defense that was really putrid last year. There's a lot of parallels, I think, between the two programs. So yeah, I don't think there was any way this was going to go away. But I think some of this came from the agent side, where you get the two clients trying to play each other to start the season.
All right, so listen, we've discussed the defense a little bit. With what Riley is known for, which of course is the great quarterback play, recruiting, et cetera, and dynamic offense, is that who they should be, or is that going to be a different look this year?
I think you're going to have to take a step back when you have a generational talent like that leaving the program in Caleb Williams. But we've seen Lincoln Riley have a lot of success with a lot of different types of quarterbacks. And Miller Moss isn't well known, but a lot of people look at him as like chopped liver, but he was an Elite 11 quarterback as well. He's become a really great leader on this team. And I think you're going to see sort of the recipe of whatever the offense is, Miller Moss, following it closer than maybe what Caleb Williams did. More like a chef, he's more of a baker where you're following the ingredients correctly, and where Caleb Williams was like a chef where you're tinkering with things and going with what feels right. I think you're going to see Miller Moss work within the constraints of the offense, and that's worked really well in the past for a different Lincoln Riley quarterback. So I think they're going to be fine on offense. If you go from like a top 3 to a top 10 offense, you're going to be okay. The question is going to be, if you can stay, as one of the elite offenses in the country, how much better can you get by being improved on the defensive side? So I think that's where everyone's going to look. If they do take a big step back on offense, it's going to be a real problem, because that's what Lincoln Riley's been really good at. So you don't want to see that go away. You just have to try to maintain that offensive prestige, but then also add it on the defensive side, which they haven't been able to do his first 2 years at USC.
Paul, they have LSU right off the top, Michigan, Wisconsin, fickle year, 2 for him?
Yeah.
Penn State, Washington, they got to change it, and then Notre Dame at the end. I mean, that doesn't include maybe a team or two that's a little bit better, like Rutgers or whoever else.
That doesn't sound so bad. That doesn't sound awful. That doesn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm sure.
Wisconsin's the only one on that list that's not ranked as far as, and they might be at some point, but they're not. Yeah,
I'm sure you'll wake up and not a cold sweat many times. Ryan, what went down with Malachi Nelson?
Yeah,
because that just seems peculiar that here you are, the next, presumably one of the next guys in this Lincoln Riley quarterback run, and he just, I guess, didn't fit there.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where he was the 5-star quarterback recruit that he had, was bringing into USC, the one that you felt like would take over for Caleb Williams. We just never heard like he was lighting the world on fire at practice. And, we don't get to watch all of it anymore. We can see the beginning. He was a little slow. He had an injury coming out of high school that was kind of slow to get along, but it just never seemed to kind of catch up. But I think when you look at, if he ended up at like Georgia or something, you're like, all right, what happened with USC? He ends up at Boise State. It's a little bit different. You're not even at a Power 5 program. So what we had heard, I think he's a good kid, but it just didn't seem to click with him at USC. We'll see if he's able to kind of get something going at Boise, but it just, some guys come in as a 5-star talent and they just never kind of reach that potential. I think from what the coaches saw, it just didn't seem like he was going to get there, and it wasn't the best fit. So I know a lot of fans really wanted to see him succeed. It didn't work out. So it'll be interesting to kind of follow his career now that he's up in Pacific Northwest at Boise State.
At the quarterback position, with Miller Moss having that huge bowl game, but then Maiava, is that right? The transfer. Is this going to be back and forth, or is that Moss's job right now?
Yeah, I think it's Moss's job. We talked to Lincoln Riley after the spring game, and he had said, if there was a game tomorrow, that would be the case. We talked to Jade Maiava in the offseason. He felt like he didn't have his best spring. I think he's got a lot of upside on the Maiava side, being, coming in, playing as a freshman in the Mountain West, being freshman of the year and all that. I think there's upside there, but from what the people I've talked to at UNLV and from what we've seen, just didn't seem like he was kind of Big Ten ready yet. But I think they like, some of the tools he has. I'd be really shocked if maybe it's a package or something, but this looks like Miller Moss's team. He represented USC at Big Ten Media Days and really has won over the locker room. There's a lot of people just look up to him, similar to the way they did to Caleb Williams.
It's been kind of a weird year PR-wise for Lincoln Riley. Do you think he's maybe kind of he had the whole kerfuffle with the young reporter last year, and he does get kind of like weird at times, I guess. It's depending on your perspective, just seeing little clips of it. Has he kind of moved through that? Because his whole vibe when he was at Oklahoma was, this is a guy who's kind of loose and cool and everything, and it feels now like he's coaching a little tense.
Yeah, it's a different situation for sure. Like, you took over for Bob Stoops. You can be, he's not someone that's very open as far as practices and being with the media and stuff. And you can do that in Oklahoma. You can't do it in LA, where you have 2 NFL teams. And, Caleb Williams was a Heisman Trophy winner, wasn't a top 20 sports star in the city, in Los Angeles. Like, it just, that was, if you have LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard and Shohei Ohtani and all these, he's not of that caliber. So you need to be more open. So I think that's been an adjustment. He's done it pretty well. I think he's been more open with the media and all that, but it really was a dumpster fire that he took over. So I think as a young coach, he's still kind of learning his ways, and maybe gets, defensive about something you don't really need to. And I think you're learning from all that. I think he's doing all right there, but it's definitely been some growing pains just because it's such a different situation where it's not a college town where you're the only game in town. Like, you have to compete for sports eyeballs, and you can't do that by closing everything down and not being open. So I think he's adjusted, or is adjusting to all of that. And of course, not taking over something that was a well-oiled machine, making it your own. So we'll see. That's why I think this year is going to be very important, because there's just a lot of his kind of DNA that's going to be on this season. And, the schedule's tough, like you guys mentioned, but there's a lot of winnable games, but there's a lot of losable games too. So some of those coin flips have to go your way. And if they don't, I think there's going to be a lot of criticism going Lincoln Riley's way.
I know you've got something to do with what your job that you do, but if you looked at the 4 schools that are entering the Big Ten with Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, is Oregon by far more prepared as far as this first year than the others because of Washington's coaching transition? It lost a lot of players. UCLA coaching transition, and then USC right now just kind of up in the air?
Yeah, I think Oregon's in a great spot right now. And, I mean, they've adapted to the new era of college football better than most. There's some schools that really have gone all in with the NIL stuff, and, Phil Knight being a part of that. Like, they've overpaid for a lot of players, but they've done it within this is what the rules are in college football. USC was one of those schools that was a little more conservative, where they were like, hey, we're not supposed to involve recruits in the collectives and all this stuff. And they were behind as far as roster building goes, where Oregon was kind of all in from the beginning. I think similar to what we saw, Ohio State was sort of slow to adapt. And after getting beat by Michigan for the 3rd year in a row and seeing their rivals win a championship, Ohio State was all in this offseason too. So I think those are 2 programs in the Big Ten that were just all in, all chips on the table for the offseason. For Ohio State, trying to get over the Michigan hump and get back to winning national championships. And for Oregon is make a big splash. They were not the first choice to go into the conference. They are not getting a full share going in there, but they want to make a huge splash going into the Big Ten. So I think they've done a really good job this offseason, and a lot of the other schools are playing catch-up, including USC, because what Oregon's been able to do, especially with NIL, is just almost unprecedented across the country.
Thank you, Ryan. Great stuff. Good to hear from you again. Thanks for being a part of the show, and enjoy the season. And we will be bothering you. Don't worry about it. We'll be back in touch.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Ryan Abraham, Inside Troy. It's actually USCfootball.com. It's at Inside Troy on his Twitter feed. Can I do an Olympic note?
Yes.
Okay, if you don't want to know this note, and it's about someone today who won a gold medal and about who they are as far as their credentials. But if you don't want to know who won, then turn down the sound. Okay?
That's very, very considerate of you.
200-meter women's final. This winner studied neurobiology at Harvard, got a master's degree in epidemiology, volunteers at a clinic for uninsured in Texas, signed an endorsement deal with New Balance, and just beat the 100-meter champion, who's unbelievable, and did it pretty convincingly to win the 200-meter gold, and Gabby Thomas, who's a Harvard graduate.
She's brilliant. I saw an interview with her the other day that they ran on NBC, and you listen to her, and like, this is, I think her mother is a college professor, and so she just comes from brilliant people, and she's impressive, and she torched everybody today.
Yep.
Torched everybody. So big Gabby Thomas fan now.
Julian Alfred, who went to Texas, won the 100-meter when she upset Richardson, if you want to call it that. She looked like at about maybe 50 meters that she was going to try to maybe make a move, but never could. Gabby Thomas just came around the turn, the curve, and dominated. Won with the gold. Julian Alfred, former Texas great 100-meter champion, was the silver medalist, and Brittany Brown of the United States won the bronze medal. And so there we are with some of the information from the Olympic Games. All right, now coming up and just around the corner, Scott Dochterman, who covers the Big Ten, Iowa, and more for theathletic.com. But that's it. We're not done. We got more to come. This is 365 Sports.
Jeff
I'll take that out for
is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas. Also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are, and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value, you get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up, or should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Couple of stories here in this segment. By the way, your reaction to either one. If you're a Houston fan, and I know we have Houston fans in the chat room and watching, Jeremiah Dickey, former second in command at Baylor, has been around with Mack Rhodes at, Arizona? No, UTEP, I think it was, and then also up in Akron, then Houston, then he was at Baylor, and now Boise State has given him a contract extension, and it never hurts when somebody else is interested in you.
Yes, Houston was interested. I think, we heard Joseph Duarte saying he was reasonably sure that they were going to try to interview Jeremiah Dickey and get him back down there because he was at Houston. They know him, but he really does seem to, and we've talked to him many times, really enjoy Boise and what they have going there, and they're just kind of making the first turn, right, of all these new things. Mm-hmm. So I think there is merit in staying someplace that you like, and that you're starting something at, not just to jump off and give it to somebody else, when you kind of have some ownership in it. Even though there might be a job out there that you think, oh, well, that's cool. We really did like living in Houston, and maybe we could go back. But, yeah, I do envision the job that takes Jeremiah out of Boise would have to be a pretty large one. I'm not knocking Houston in that. It just, I would say it would have to be something that's, bigger.
Well, I mean, it's a Power Four conference team, but he also knows the ins and outs at Houston, and because he was there when Mack Rhodes was there, and now he gets an extension at Boise State. Now, we've seen head coaches get extensions, and it didn't matter because they could still be out the door, but I hope that this is great for him. I hope he's excited about it. I know Boise State fan base has to be thrilled with it. So, the SEC and the Big Ten, remember the famed and failed alliance that Kevin Warren, Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12 put together to kind of fight off some of the future? Remember that? Mm-hmm. The SEC and the Big Ten basically have one that actually is working, and it's actually pretty tight.
That was the plan, right?
Yeah.
That was the plan all along from Kevin Warren. He just needed some people to go along with him so he could get his TV deal done.
Yes, and then he was able to get it done, made him look great. Now he's running the Chicago Bears. Well, Alex Scarborough from 247, also covers Alabama, has reported now that the SEC is also now moving forward, adopting the mandatory injury reports in time for the 2024 season, which the Big Ten, I think, has already adopted. I like this idea. The gambling money that is now involved in college football is not of the NFL, but it's huge. And I think that some transparency is good. However, you think that someone, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that Lane Kiffin or Harbaugh, if he was still at Michigan, you think they're going to turn in that?
Well, I mean, they could just Belichick it and put everybody as questionable until the NFL. I mean, you even looked at the Patriots injury report back during their peak. Tom Brady always had an ankle injury and all this because he didn't want to report injuries, so he just reported a bunch of them that were.
Yep.
I mean, they weren't necessarily truthful. If you walked up to Tom Brady and said, "Hey, of all the things on your body that hurt during the season, what's the most?" My ankle hurts a little bit. It's not going to slow you down from playing, right? No. All right, questionable. And then you just ask the same question to everybody else that matters. Hey, Willie McGinnis, I saw you stretching that shoulder out there. Does it hurt? Oh, yeah, it's pretty sore.
It's sore.
Questionable. And so that's what he did. I think the biggest thing I think this is going to help, other than the gambling, the second biggest thing that I would be is it's just kind of ridiculous trying to figure these things out and report on them. So for our business, it's really easy because you ask a lot of coaches and they'll be like, well, he's coming along. We like what we've seen. And half the time in my brain is, all due respect, coach, but what the F does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Coming along? Yeah. The Cowboys in the NFL were 6 to 8 weeks means they're out for the year. Yeah. It's not 6 to 8 weeks.
Even if the guys,
4 to 6
if
weeks,
they had lost their foot, it would still be, well, we're not really sure. They did that a lot.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they actually, when they said 6 to 8 weeks, it was 6 to 8 weeks. But there were too many times, especially if it's a pretty big name, an important player, they would use that and hide behind it. And they just, because they couldn't just say, he's out for the year.
It does get annoying. And I know people are like, oh, well, boo-hoo for you. But it does get annoying, and it's unclear. It's also, I've always thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever, not naming a starting quarterback and not releasing injury reports is so disrespectful to coaches now. Now, look, if there was not film exchange and back in the old days, you'd only been on TV one time and you could maybe hide this information a little bit better, but on all levels of football now, all this information is available and shared. Mm-hmm. It's there for you. So for you to think that the coaching staff who gets paid the exact same amount of money as your coaching staff does, isn't smart enough to pick up on the fact that your tailback got hurt in the third quarter and carted off, and that they're not going to prepare for the other guy while still preparing for the fact that maybe the injury wasn't as serious, then you're just being silly.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. The whole I'm not going to name the starting quarterback thing makes them prepare for everybody, but they're doing that anyway because they don't know who the starting quarterback is either. And also, it's a secret for one play. That's it. Then the secret's out, and then they go, okay, let's game plan for number 9 instead of number 12.
And I think everybody has people inside every organization anyway, so That's how Vegas gets you when you see a line of 3 go to 2.5 or to go to 4. It's not because all of a sudden they see something different who's playing whom. It's because of inside information. It happens in college, man. It does. It happens in college. I still, to this day, even though I don't get to go to practice usually is when we're on the air. Most of the time it's a 15-minute window anyway. I rarely get to go to any of the post-practice because by the time we're out of here, cutting promos, whatever, they're done. And then sometimes you get over there and they're running a little bit late. So it's hard for me to understand anything about who's available or not. I still, to this day, with people I know that gamble, will text me about, hey, what's the status of Blake Shapen? Or what's the status of Corey Coleman? And I don't know. If I knew that, I would say it on the damn show. Mm-hmm. You know? But this is something that I think because of the money involved now. Does it matter, Garrett, that there's billions of dollars now being gambled on college football, that the injury reports should be more known? Is that anyone's business but the team itself?
I mean, I think at this point, yeah, it's everybody's. Everybody needs to know it. It only makes sense. You're trying to essentially model yourself after the NFL. This is something that they do on a regular basis, and if that's the end game, then yeah, why not take this step? I think honestly, this is something that probably should have happened about 5 or 10 years ago. But with gambling being where it is, it's made it a no-brainer, and you almost have to do it at this point.
Yeah, I think so. But I do know. There are coaches that are just not.
Yeah, they're not going to like it. Yeah, they're not going to like it.
Not at all.
They're going to hate it because they've never had to do it before.
And what are they going to do? Fine them, like they do? The organization gets fined. I don't think the coach does.
No, but there'll be some sort of punishment for it. Now they'll all do it, and there'll be somebody who's smart enough to figure out their way around it until they create a Belichick rule for them and be like, look. If you don't have it, but you can't just not have it. And I do think there are a lot of coaches that will be on board for it because they are worried about the integrity and the new head. It's funny. They traded one headache for another. Weed is not really the problem anymore. They're not going to have to chase down weed. That was something that was never, it was never defeatable. It was absolutely never, ever going to be defeatable. Too many coaches would really try hard because they had feelings about it one sort of way, and that's their prerogative. But they were not just swimming upstream; they were trying to swim up a waterfall. It just wasn't going to happen. It's impossible.
The only part about weed was whether someone was going to be suspended.
Yeah,
because they had been involved in an incident with marijuana.
Yeah, but now they're not. Really doing that anymore for the most part. I mean, there's still isolated incidents. But now you trade that. Okay, that problem we don't have to really chase down anymore. We don't have to worry about it as much. There's gambling now that they can just go online and do it. They don't have to go to a person and, sit that's the other thing. But gambling before is scary enough where you worry about, especially guys in states where it's legal or going on vacation or in states where it's not legal, getting introduced to the wrong guy and making bets with him or giving him information in exchange for money, all those things. Now that's kind of mostly not my concern because there's a lot of effort and these guys are busy. But if I'm sitting on the team bus, I can just hop on my DraftKings app and go, boop.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see how coaches try to play that game because, hey, they do. There's always the story, like high school coaches, and they get a lot of that. Some of the high school coaches, the story about a great friend of mine, 2 of them, they were. John Outlaw, former Lufkin coach, who was at Sherman. Prior to that, he won state championships in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. He won a state championship at Lufkin with Reggie McNeil at quarterback. And then he was playing. They were in the playoffs, and Art Briles and Stephenville were rolling, and they're supposed to, trade film. And Outlaw played mind games with Briles and Stephenville. Well, then what Art Briles and Stephenville's staff did, they have connections in the coaching business of teams that had played, new coaches who had played against Lufkin, whether it was, and they found enough film, but so are they going to do that for film when everything's on Huddle now or whatever?
And so they do that. But here's the thing about that. Art was one of the worst about telling injuries.
No, yeah, he was.
And he was like that. Yeah. And I'm like, man, You don't know? Like,
yeah, no, he did. And,
You don't know that-
I'll say this, though. Their practices,
We're very
for the
open.
most part, were
Yeah.
very open.
Yeah.
You could sit there and watch them do more than just throwing, passes to the tight ends, receivers, and running backs in the early part of the workouts. At times, they was pretty accessible, and everybody again is a little bit different. There was one more. So we did that part on the gambling.
Yes.
Well, not on injury
State,
reports being available. That will be fun to see how they can try to at least make that work. And if the Big Ten and SEC are doing it, you wonder if the next thing you know, the ACC and also or Big 12 and other conferences follow suit. Let's see here. We did that. Okay, that's it. We've got all the stories from the headlines and the smokestack or whatever we call that. What's it called?
The smokestack.
Smokestack, okay. Like I even saw that up on the site.
Oh, yeah, we got you.
Like 17 people viewed it. It's not a bad segment. If you guys would ever follow the order of which I put up the topics.
I mean, we're pretty good at it considering what we're dealing with. You.
Every day I work really hard on that segment.
I know you do. I know you do.
I really do.
And so does Garrett, and so do I. And then we have to deal with.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
The flight of the bumblebee that happens over here.
If anyone can give me a bottle of Adderall, send it my way.
I've been thinking about dousing Ghost Hydration.
Yes,
with this.
From Benny Keith Distribution here in the Waco. Just like they're like a mile from us. They're on the way. If you were to come here to the studio, walk down MLK across the bridge on Franklin, Benny Keith is like on your way to the pavilion, the Foster Pavilion, to basketball, thanks to our good friend Gary Holcomb. On sharing tweets, when you guys send me an email with the tweet, you probably need to also make sure that it's not just the link.
Well, no,
we're going to talk about this on the air. We're going to get this out.
No, it populates.
What does that mean?
I mean, in my email, when I put the link up, it populates the tweet. It puts it up so you can see it.
I don't always think so.
That's probably on your end.
When I send Garrett a tweet, a link, I also sometimes copy the script, don't I? And send it with you.
Sometimes.
Now,
yes.
almost all the time. And
Right.
I'll be honest with you. The reason I do that is then I print that because otherwise I forget what I'm sending you. I mean, if it's just a link. Now, we got to get over that. You guys have got to get past one more thing.
I'm going to send you one right now.
A link?
Yes. We're going to see what happens. All right. Here's one from Todd Archer, our friend. All right.
All right. Cowboys related?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's nothing. So, yeah. No, I think, there we go. Let's see. See,
All right,
look.
let's see what
it's right there.
No, but I don't think I get it that way. I really don't. I don't think that it comes into my inbox that way. We're about to find out.
We're going to find out. If a tweet populates when we send it to your email.
I hate it when I get something from Toll Tag. For some reason, my username and password is always the same, and they always refuse when I put it in there. So I'll wait for your tweet to come down before we break. We got to come back with Scott Doerman. Let's see, Paul Catalina. Well, wait a minute. That's it. All right. And I'm going to find one. When we come, Scott Doerman, who covers the Big Ten, theathletic.com, wrote an article about all those teams in the West that every once in a while, Wisconsin was pretty good, or Wisconsin in the West? Iowa was pretty good, yeah. But they just weren't good enough because the East had it, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. And how are they going to fare with this new Big Ten with those 4 new teams coming in? That story and more. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. I am so hungry for a pizza. In fact, the other day I was at the grocery store and I was going to make my own. I get flatbread and I do all that, and it's pretty good, actually. But I'm just going to call when I leave here. I might even get online and order at marcos.com. And then about the time I get to the condo, they'll be knocking on my door within 15 or 20 minutes. Marco's Pizza, easy to order online. You could call, they'll deliver. You can pick it up on your way home or wherever it might be. And, of course, they have numerous options. The crust can be, I like thin crust. I don't like the big, thick, chewy stuff. I like the thin crust. Marco's Pizza with pepperoni and sausage magnifico, which basically the pie, after the crust and then, of course, the marinara, the sauce, is loaded with pepperoni, like cover wall to wall, and then on top of that, just a bucket load of Italian sausage. Every once in a while, I'll put a vegetable on it, whether it's onion or bell pepper or something like that. I like their pizza. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. There's a reason for that. 5 locations in Waco. The owner is Bob Mock here locally, including Woodway, China Spring, Bellmead, Robinson, and also Hewitt. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or 2 or 3 reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Scott Doerman covers the Big Ten, also Iowa, among that, of course, for theathletic.com, and joins us on 365 Sports. So, Scott, with the 4 schools coming in for the Pac-12 with Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, what about the mid-level teams of the Big Ten that have struggled at times? Does that just knock them down a peg or two, or is there going to be some that can rise through the ashes?
I think there's going to be some that rise up from this. I mean, I think it's not going to change that dramatically. I mean, not getting to the championship game for a school like, let's say, Illinois or Minnesota isn't going to happen anyway, except in a miracle year once. And that they never made it there to begin with in the West Division. So, basically they're just going to replace an Oregon or replace a Penn State with an Oregon or a Wisconsin with a USC. So they're basically replacing a loss with a loss. So I think they get there. And then as far as the ones that are in that upper middle class, you might want to say, in Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan State, some of the years, they're going to be there anyway because they're competitive enough and they've won enough of those games to where when they're good, they'll be in them. But when they're not good, they're going to probably slip from an 8-4 to a 7-5 or a 9-3 to a 7-5. So I don't know that it's going to be that dramatic, and the schedule is going to be so varied. Like you look at Iowa this year, they play at Ohio State, but they don't play Penn State, Michigan, or Oregon. So the schedule is really going to matter and who they play and how.
Who do you think outside of Iowa that is in for the roughest go of their transition this year, who's maybe not ready to play this style of football?
That's a good question. I mean, I think USC. I mean, I think USC's defense is so bad that I think it's going to come to the Big Ten and have a real surprise because their offense is going to score points. It's going to score points against some good teams, but it's just not going to be able to handle a lot of cases unless their defense is really improved. And I know they've made changes there and added some players and done some things, but I think this is going to be a tough year for them because the schedule's so deep. And I would say Washington's in the same boat. When you look at the holdovers, Iowa's going to change, but when you look at their schedule, they've got a chance to go win 10 or 11 games. Their offense will improve, and just because they're adding some new teams in, they're going to have to make adjustments. But I don't see them being so dramatically of a fall off. Now, getting to the championship game will be much more difficult, but winning 10, 11 games and potentially being in playoff consideration, I think will be in a similar situation as they were before.
I asked this earlier in the week, or maybe even it was last week, and I remember Craig, our co-host, my son, he looked at me like, what the hell are you saying? My point is the Big Ten, 18 teams, the ACC, 17, the SEC, and the Big 12 have, 16? And I know that at the end of the year there might be 1, 2, or 3 teams that separate, but because of the algorithms of the schedules, are we really, truly getting a feel for who should play for the conference championship each year?
No, that's going to be really difficult, and I think that's what's it's going to look a lot like regular season college basketball, where you got some teams that play home and home, and it depends on the luck of the draw or your rival or whatever. And I think it's going to be the same way here, except it's just going to be much more important. But the good thing is, I think if there would still be a 4-team playoff, I think this could be a potential for a disaster, because we were going through scenarios today at the Athletic, and there's one that's not that far-fetched where you could have a 5-way tie with one loss because Michigan, Penn State, or Michigan, Oregon, and Ohio State, if they all lost round robin, and then you throw Penn State and Iowa if they only lost to Ohio State, because that's the only real major opponent that they're playing this year. You could have a 5-way tie, and that's going to be tough for the playoff. But if you're talking about, just winning the championship would be pretty much your only guarantee to get to a 4-team playoff, that could be a real disaster. So I think it's going to be a challenge. I mean, it looks like to me that eventually there's going to be, an extension or, an additional playoff teams. And getting to the playoff, I think ultimately will be the bigger deal than getting your conference championship game. Kind of like what it's like in men's basketball, where getting to your conference championship tournament game is great, but it's not the same as advancing in the NCAA tournament.
Scott, you mentioned earlier about the way that the schedule is going to fall, and is that going to make it harder for a team like Iowa to run away and hide most years and maybe hurt their recruiting overall, because they can't say, hey, we're 11-1 and 10-2 and 10-2 and 10-2 all these times, and then pay no attention to the Buckeye or the Wolverine behind the curtain?
Maybe a little bit, but these teams are going to be playing each other so regularly now, where they never really did before. Although, there was enough crossover to where they were playing at least one of the good East teams, and conversely, the East teams were playing some of the good West teams too. So, for instance, Iowa was the only team in the West to beat every team in the East during that duration, and Wisconsin beat 5 out of the 7. So I don't know that. The one thing is that they're not going to be, they're still going to be playing, sometimes missing some of these teams, because you're going to guarantee to play them twice every 5 years. But I don't know that it'll hurt recruiting as much, because over a 5-year period, you're guaranteed to play home and away with every single team in your league. And in Iowa's case, they have 3 permanent opponents. Everybody else is 2-1 or even 0 in Penn State's case. So I don't know that it's going to be that big of a deal. It's just, but style of play, how they perform in those games, that absolutely will matter when it comes to recruiting.
There's no question Rutgers is getting a lot of attention. Matt Rule, year 2 with Nebraska, is getting a lot of attention. I saw where they lost an offensive lineman, and it's always hated for him because he's been hurt like every year he's tried to play. Which of those two is more likely to meet, when I say expectations, at least make a push to be more than just a bowl team?
I think this year it's Nebraska. I like Rutgers a lot. I think they're limited in a couple of positions that could be separators. I could see Rutgers winning 8 or 9 games. Greg Schiano's done a fantastic job in building that program to what it needs to do to compete and win games and get to bowl games in the Big Ten. I think Nebraska, though, last year they had a really good defense, and they had an offense that was, if it wasn't for Iowa, would have probably looked worse, But Iowa kind of that overshadowed what they had. And they only won 5 games last year, but this year they've got a 5-star quarterback, that came in as a true freshman, and they've got some pieces and the schedule. Their first 7 games are against opponents. None of them won more than 6 games in the regular season last year, so they have a chance to go 7-0 to start. Then go to Ohio State and get beat, probably decisively. And then it's kind of like they got UCLA, USC, Iowa, and Wisconsin, which are competitive programs, good programs, but programs that I think this year that Nebraska might be able to match up with. I mean, it took Iowa kicked a field goal in the game's final play to win last year against the Huskers, and then I think it was overtime, if I recall correctly, that Wisconsin beat Nebraska. So, I mean, those games are, if they're playing well, could be very competitive. And so I'd say Nebraska's got higher upside this year.
Don't tease Smokey like that.
No. I mean, Scott, they just had some of the most, and you've seen, they lose these 1-score games, but it's how they lose them. I mean, sometimes it's just like they go brain dead. The weirdest things can happen. I forgot who it was, but they were playing a game, it may have been last year early on. They're down near the goal line. Might have been Maryland or something. And all they have to do is the game's tied. Kick a field goal. They throw a pick in the end zone. It's run back to about the 43 plays later. Maryland kicks a field goal, wins the game. That's happened to them. It's like they're not very smart IQ, which I know Matt Rule has to try to work on that. So with, you hear about Ohio State and Ryan Day and the pressure for them to win. Does he have any whatsoever room for error this year?
No, especially when it comes to Michigan. Now, if they were to go to, let's say they go to Oregon and lose by a field goal or something like that, but if they run the rest of the games, I mean, they've got maybe as tough of a schedule as anybody in the league. If they can go back to Indianapolis and win there, let's say, then I don't think that's a big deal. However, even if they were guaranteed a spot in the Big Ten championship game, but lose to Michigan in the end or something, that would be as bad as not going at all. I mean, after 3 straight losses to Michigan, it's a different dynamic between those two teams. And when you start getting a losing streak, I mean, they can go to the championship game, and if they'd still lost to Michigan, it would just leave a stain on their resume. It's unreal.
So the only way for them to wash off what would be a 4th straight loss to Michigan would be to maybe win the whole darn thing and hoist the national championship trophy?
Yeah. In fact, you remember a couple of years ago, I think it was only 2 years ago, when they went right down to the wire with Georgia. And they lost to Michigan in the regular season, but they were in the playoffs. Michigan loses to TCU, and Ohio State takes Georgia down to the wire and loses by a point, 42-41. Had they won and then beaten TCU, I mean, it would have been such a weird dynamic, because it's like, we won the national title, but we lost to Michigan. It's an insane dynamic between those two teams, and it'll never change. And you know what? God bless them, because that's what's great about college football.
We brought this up. The SEC is going to look, and maybe most likely pass that they'll do the injury reports. The Big Ten's already there. How is that going to work if a coach tries to play a little bit of mind games? Because they're good at that.
Yeah, if they could start to do that, then they'll get turned in, and then it'll be they'll get reprimanded for it, and then it becomes an issue. And I know that was significant last year about this time, because in Iowa, Iowa and Iowa State players were accused of being involved and they were arrested for it, and in a lot of cases took plea bargains and for a gambling situation. And so that's really what it's all prevented to do more than anything else. And so I'll be anxious to see if that continues. There were a couple of times I thought, even during basketball, where I'm like, okay, this guy's not playing, but he's not on the injury report. It's like, oh yeah, well, he got sick right, 2 hours before tip. And I'm like,
yeah.
So, you don't tell me that, I know want to hear it. So I think, but it's just basketball. When you're talking about football, it's a different dynamic. So I think that's something we've got to be careful about and watch very closely.
Hey, thanks a lot, Scott. Keep up the great work of what you do with theathletic.com. We appreciate your time. I hope to have you on a handful of times during the season. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much, guys.
Scott
Appreciate it.
Doerman, theathletic.com. And there's a lot of teams in that midsection that have no idea. Are they 2-3 games less because of the 2 or 3 or 4-2 schools coming in? Now, I have to say, if you look at the incoming teams, in the Big 12, Utah's going to be really good. Arizona could be. Colorado, you don't know. And then Arizona State could struggle. In the ACC, Stanford should not be able to compete much, or Cal.
Cal's got a really good.
Yeah.
They've got
Yeah,
don't tell that to Jake Spavital.
Yeah.
He'll build that offense.
And then, of course, you have SMU that's really pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Big Ten, you have Oregon, who's up, Washington, who's kind of flat, USC, who we don't know much about, and UCLA's not expected to be very good. The Big Ten, you got Texas, who's on a run right now. SEC, the Texas on a run, hot, smoldering. And then you also have Oklahoma, who I think some people are writing off a little bit, who will still – it's Oklahoma. They've been this way for a long time, even though they do seem like they're still maybe a year or two from being really good.
It would not shock me if they were 9-3 and 10 or 10-2, though. It
wouldn't
shock me at
with
all.
that schedule?
Yeah, it would not. Just
it
because
wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't shock me.
I
think they're in 8-4 territory, just given the fact that the SEC kind of flipped a coin between Texas and OU, and it's like, all right, which one are you going to get? Should have called tails. So but it wouldn't surprise me, because there's a reason why they are one of those 5 or 6 logo alpha brands forever as a blue blood.
All right, when we come back, Notre Dame, a team, and we've gone around the country today, kind of a theme of that with USC, and then, of course, we just discussed the Big Ten, had Michigan with Angelique, Ryan Abraham we had with USC. Coming up, Pete Samson covers Notre Dame, had the offensive linemen go out for the year, and a team getting, for the most part, top 10 love from the voters and elsewhere, and this is 365 Sports.
Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco is where I get my cigars. 48-foot walk-in humidor with all of the great brands, nationally and internationally, the best elite brands around the world. And how about this email from owner Josh Caldwell, who told me about a couple that drove in from Fort Worth to Waco purely based on listening and hearing me talk about Don Humidor. They have a pipe that's a bit of a family heirloom that needed to be repaired. They made the special trip to Don's after listening to 365 Sports, finding out we are one of the only shops left that can help them with the pipe. Not only are they going to fix the pipe, and they did, they also bought a new setup, complete with pipe, stand, and some sample tobaccos. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor, great cigars, even what you need when it comes to smoking pipes and repair, and fresh coffee beans. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans with Cheyenne and Josh in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Make this the summer of Ram at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home in a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star for just 2.9% for 72 months with no payments for 90 days. Plus, first responders get an extra $500 off at Allen Samuels.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke.
Actually, Craig's on vacation. It's Dad, David. Boy, that's out of nowhere.
I must have pulled the PNC.
I should just walk off the set.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Pete Samson for theathletic.com also covers Notre Dame, among other things, joins us on 365 Sports. And, Pete, thank you very much for your time. So it seems like Notre Dame is not getting a lot of attention, even though they're Notre Dame, but they're a team that every time I look at any kind of poll, they're inside the top 10. Is that about where you think they are, just inside the top 10? And am I wrong thinking they're somewhat under the radar?
Yeah, I think that's, are they Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon? No, Texas, they're not, I think, at that level, but like they're kind of in the next group of teams that I think are going to be fighting to host a first round playoff game. So are they under the radar? Maybe, maybe not. But I think they're a legit top 10 team. But when I say top 10 team, I mean somewhere between 6 and 10, not between 1 and 5.
Their schedule's not easy. Of course, it never really is. But if they're 10-2, are they okay in the playoff, or do they need to be 11-1?
To host, obviously 11-1, 10-2. It's like, usually I would agree. Like their schedule is legit. I mean, it's got some good markers in it. This year, it's like it's got one at the beginning with A&M, even though we're not totally sure what A&M is going to look like. And then, Florida State comes here to South Bend in November, and then you go to USC at the end. It's kind of hard to tell what USC is going to be at that point. I mean, compared to last year when it was USC, but Caleb Williams, USC, Ohio State, and Clemson, the schedule definitely is lighter than Notre Dame typically plays. So I think that's where the 10-2. I don't know if they make it at 10-2. I think they probably would, but I think they would be sweating it on championship Saturday if they finish 10-2, especially with the schedule not having like quite as many marquee games as maybe they normally would.
What do you think Marcus Freeman will be better at this year than he wasn't the first year?
Well, I think he's figured out that he needs to have a big-time offensive coordinator who has seen stuff, has been able to sort of work through problems in-game, make adjustments quickly, and they get that in Mike Denbrock, who comes back to Notre Dame from LSU. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson learned for him is like, I got to have somebody who's been through the wars as my offensive coordinator. They didn't really have that the last 2 years with Tommy Rees and then with Jared Parker. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson learned by Freeman.
How much better are they on offense skill-wise than they were a year ago when you add guys like Bo Collins, Jaden Greathouse another year under the belt, and then, of course, not to knock Sam Hartman. He was a very efficient and good quarterback, but Riley Leonard is a step or two above.
Yeah, I think at receiver they're so much better than they were last year. I mean, they went into the Duke game last season with 3 healthy scholarship receivers, which is just none of whom are still on the roster. It was bare bones last year. They really did not put Hartman in a position to succeed. I think Leonard brings more to the table than Hartman offered in terms of his mobility. Certainly not as a passer or in terms of actual game experience, but it's the running back position still fine, even though you lose Audric Estimate. Tight end Mitchell Evans comes back. They need to figure out the offensive line. It's different. Usually Notre Dame, they're built from the offensive line out. This year, I feel like they're sort of built at the skill positions back in. But yeah, I think Leonard is going to give them a mobility threat that Hartman never really offered them last year.
What was or how much of a ripple at all were the Lincoln Riley comments about the Notre Dame series, which I'm old enough to know how far that goes back. Yeah. And the great memories. I brought up the Anthony Davis 6-touchdown game, I think, in 72, whatever it was. That's how old I am. But was there any kind of murmur about whether or not that series would continue?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's concern. I don't think it's like a fire alarm at this point, but USC is in a spot right now where they go to a conference. They don't know what they're getting into necessarily. They're coming to the Midwest 3 or 4 times a year. You hate to see tradition go by the wayside because that's like one of the great series in college football. But I can understand Riley being like, "Hey, could we at least take a look at this?" But you would like to think that there would be people in charge there that'd be like, "Yeah, we looked at that. We're still doing it. Like this is what college football is all about." But yeah, I mean, USC is just kind of entering into a new world here where, maybe don't open with LSU and end with Notre Dame. Maybe the LSU game is kind of more of the game you need to put by the wayside, opposed to dropping a historical rival that's like, a marker of college football history.
How do you feel about their overall depth? Obviously, had the big injury on the offensive line this week, and you're going to have more of those. Is this a team that can withstand those things?
It's on the offensive line. No, Charles Jagasaw, even though he's played 66 snaps of offensive line, he was their most talented offensive lineman going into the sophomore year. So that is a killer. They're very deep on the defensive line. Pretty deep at linebacker, wide receiver. They're very deep. Tight end is solid. Running back room solid. But quarterback, cornerback, those are probably the positions that they're a little thin. Certainly offensive line now, but everybody's got their problems. I think Notre Dame's depth is probably better in the defensive front seven than it's been in some time, but on the offensive line, that's probably where they're a little bit short right now.
I saw your note from Al Washington, the defensive line coach with the Irish, that opening game, even though it's an evening start at Kyle Field and A&M, it will be hotter than Hades because 6:30 doesn't matter. It's no different than 2:30 in the afternoon. And the depth on the offensive line, will they have the ability to rotate a bunch of guys in and out during that game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, on the defensive front, they are so much deeper than when they opened at Texas in 2016, where, they maybe went 6 deep and the game went to double overtime and they played one of their defensive ends like 85 snaps. That's an insane thing to try to do. But Notre Dame they didn't have the bodies up front to do it. Now, yeah, they will play 10 guys at Texas A&M. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I think that's it's 10 quality guys. I don't feel like they're going to be stealing snaps just to give a guy a rest. And the frontline guys, they're going to start 4 grad students on the defensive line. Riley Mills and Howard Cross on the interior are both bona fide All-American level type players. So they should be very good at the top of the defensive line and incredibly deep too.
One of those wide receivers I neglected to mention is former quarterback Tyler Buckner, and now Notre Dame lacrosse superstar. I guess I don't know. I didn't follow him there, but
national champion at least.
National champion, yeah, in lacrosse. How much do you think he will play at wide receiver?
He won't, and that's on part. They're deep enough, and he would be probably the 12th or 13th guy at that position. They've recruited well. They did a great job in the transfer portal. You mentioned Bo Collins. They also get Chris Mitchell from FIU, 1,000-yard receiver. Jaden Harrison from Marshall, who's probably more of a return guy, but has been working as sort of the backup slot to Jaden Greathouse. And then, Greathouse from your area, they think he is going to be a star, that he is the best at that position, maybe by far. So that's the guy to watch, number one for Notre Dame, if you're looking for a local connection there on the Irish roster.
Greathouse is the one from Lake Travis? Is that right? Yeah. Heck of a player, man. He's a dude. Hey, this might be a dumb question, but that's okay. If you don't know the answer, it's not dumb. The NIL that we now see in college athletics, how has Notre Dame handled that?
Probably more aggressive than I would have thought they would have been.
Okay.
You see what they've done in the transfer portal, getting Sam Hartman and then Riley Leonard. Those are free. They're not just coming here because they like Rudy. So Notre Dame's success in the transfer portal is well funded. They're not really going the upfront payment high school prospect route with NIL, but in terms of taking care of their roster, to get Riley Mills back, Xavier Watts back, Howard Cross back for final years in South Bend. Again, that's not a free transaction. So I think Notre Dame's approach to NIL has been much more, let's invest as much as we can in established talent and then hire the best coaches that we can. Both their coordinators are on 4-year deals at $2 million per year. They're paying big money for coaches and to keep proven talent on campus. So that's been sort of the crux of their NIL approach.
Pete Bavacqua has reiterated to everybody in the midst of conference realignment that Notre Dame has, no plans to jump into it. They want to keep their unique independence. And every rule that gets made, I think people in the greater scheme of things keep thinking that Notre Dame is somehow not a part of this. Whoever their AD is, whether it be Jack Swarbrick forever or Pete Bavacqua, has as much say in this as does Tony Petitti or Brett Yormark or Greg Sankey or Jim Phillips, because he's in that group. So is there anything short of them absolutely needing to that would ever change their mind on that?
Probably not. I mean, I guess I would never say never, but if the ACC collapsed and USC said we're not going to play you anymore, and maybe the playoff structure changed again where it wasn't as favorable for Notre Dame, I really think you would need like 3 things to happen to get them to move. And one of them is not going to be media rights, because NBC took care of them when they re-signed in the last year. So they're set financially, that they're well above the ACC and the Big 12. They're in the same neighborhood as the SEC and the Big 10. So financially you're good, but you got to play a schedule that's compelling for your media partner and to make the playoff. If the SEC goes to 9 games, the Big 10 is suddenly more reluctant to play Notre Dame, then maybe you've got some issues. But I think the Big 10 doesn't want Notre Dame to join the SEC in any capacity, nor does the SEC want Notre Dame to join the Big 10 in any capacity. So I think that both those leagues will continue to play Notre Dame because they don't want to push them to the other. So they're in good shape independence-wise right now. 10 years from now, that's a long time. Kind of hard to look that far into the future.
By the way, I need to correct myself. Sander Green, thank you. It's Jaden Greathouse is from Westlake, Austin Westlake.
Whoa.
The other,
Whoa.
they're huge rivals. Westlake's had the best of that in recent years after Lake Travis had a great run. Pete, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. On the recruiting front, on the quarterback that has decommitted and now looks like he's headed to Auburn, how much of a sting is that?
It's a big one. I mean, they've been with Deuce Knight for about a year now. He was always going to be tough to keep. And that signing him and then keeping him on campus, because they have CJ Carr in the freshman class right now at quarterback. But that burns them, because they look at Deuce Knight and feel like this is a kid who's got future number 1 overall potential. Like he is very much like a lottery ticket prospect. Like,
yep.
Who knows if he will work out, but if he does work out, the ceiling is incredibly high on somebody like him.
Yeah, it's a revolving door at times, but he's a high-level player. Auburn has him, Notre Dame did, and now we'll see how Notre Dame reacts to that. Pete, great stuff. Thank you very much for responding to the invitation. Thanks for your time, and have a great week.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Pete Samson, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. And Deuce Knight is a 4-star quarterback out of Mississippi.
Name.
Oh, I know.
Great name.
And he was committed to Notre Dame, as Pete said, for quite some time. Again, there's a long way to go between now and December. Long way to go between now and December. Not so much saying with him, but really a lot of the one thing to get the commitment, it's another thing to keep it and get them on their signature. And even then, you may have them for a year, or they transfer at the end of the spring. I mean, it's just it's nuts.
Deuce Knight's name is so great, it sounds totally made up. Like you would, not like one that Point Break, Keanu Reeves played a character named Johnny Utah. That was like kind of silly, even though that movie's awesome. But Deuce Knight is, if I was writing a screenplay about a big-time quarterback, I don't know if I could come up with the name Deuce Knight. And then the person who did, I mean, that's a hit movie with Deuce Knight.
I think you're really going overboard on this name.
I don't think so. I think that Deuce Knight is a great
he should have been the quarterback for Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, that kind of a thing. Yeah.
All right, when we come back, Hall of Fame columnist John McClain, of course, part of the Hall of Fame selection committee, and they had their big, huge weekend recently. Had some weather issues up there in Chicago, or Canton, excuse me. Also around the corner, Paul Catalina's top 5. Before anyone asks again, because I just had somebody in the text me, my phone, where's Craig? He's on vacation. And like I'm the only one that has not had any time off this year.
Okay.
All the medical stuff doesn't count.
Okay. I mean, you still went on a golf trip, I know, right? Or no, you went to see your brothers. I mean, that was
funeral week.
But you did before then, right?
Who?
Before. You've been down a couple times.
March, my brother was on his deathbed.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to figure out.
Why are you bringing that up?
I'm not trying to bring it up. I was just thought that like you guys maybe did something fun together in any of those times.
See, Craig's one of those takes the whole week. He will shut it down. Like he will absolutely. I went and saw him again right after the show yesterday. Just get some papers that I needed to get signed, and he's done. I mean, he will not be a part of any of the text messages. And in fact, if we get on that a little bit too much, he will tell us, won't he? Will you take me out of this? Yeah. He will. So I don't know. I may take the rest of the month of August off. I'm not so sure.
Knock yourself out.
I will always have like a couple of 4-day weekends between now and when high school football starts that last weekend in August. No, if we're good. Everyone's had a pretty good break. Garrett, you had yours, right?
Yeah, I did.
Paul, you went to Nashville, and a couple of the times you've been able to get away.
I went to Palm Springs. I went to Nashville. Yeah, Nashville was, I can't say Palm Springs was all that active. It was a lot of drinking by the pool, but.
That's active.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know.
Calories.
I got to meet a bunch of cool waiters. Different one every day. So.
Did you tip them?
Oh, yeah. That's the danger with me on vacation in a pool where a waiter comes up and says, "Hey, I see that drink's empty." And you're like, "You know what, Javier? You're right."
Was it one of those that everything was included when you went there?
No.
Like a cruise?
No.
Or a resort?
Wish it would have been. It was not. And then, like, the thing is, the bill comes at the end of the day. I'm just writing a big old tip and signing it. And then I get the bill from the resort at the end of it. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
I threw down.
No, there are times we can get out of control with it. When it just becomes, you forget that this does cost money. I mean, it does.
Yeah. No, like they asked me, like, we'll get you a great. They have beautiful golf courses, obviously, in Palm Springs, and I'm not a golfer, although I'm a golf fan, as you know. I'd like to get back into it, but I'm not going to do it in Palm Springs alone. That's for sure. And I was like, oh no, like, oh, we'll get you a great deal. And then I thought, like, man, that's what's going to happen. There is they're going to have cart girls, and they're going to have all this stuff, and then it's going to be twice as expensive as day at the pool.
You got the tee time. You got first the green fee.
Yeah.
Along with usually includes the cart fee.
And I didn't
You're
have
going to want to buy
so
something in the pro shop, rental clubs, rental golf shoes,
golf cart,
golf cart. Again, you're going to want to drink 5 or 7 times during the round.
It's hot.
The cart girl.
Yeah, it's hot there. So,
all right. When we come back, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, around the corner, as I mentioned, top 5 today. It's weird how the day started as far as guests. Sometimes you have things lined up. We had Tim Brando today. He's still kind of under the weather, so that will be the Thursday or Friday, we hope, or we're going to have to, go see him. And so we had Jake Trotter from ESPN from the beginning. So we checked in with Michigan, USC, Scott Dockerman on the entire Big Ten, and then Pete Samson on Notre Dame. Kind of some blue bloods, in a way, that we talked about today. And we'll, of course, get to some of the Big 12 schools again, among many other of our guests coming up. And this is 365 Sports.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed. Smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line. With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. Paul Catalina, David Smoke, Craig out until next week, kind of chilling out. Garrett Ross and Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie helping with everything that makes us what we are on 365 Sports, including great guest John McClain. John, the Hall of Fame weekend, the Steve McMichael stuff was incredible, but overall, always try to get like a report card from you and your thoughts about how it went.
Well, I was partial, of course, because I presented Andre Johnson to our committee, and he made it. It was his third year of eligibility. I kind of changed my presentation more than I had, and I was so excited, relieved, happy for him. He's the epitome of what we want a Hall of Famer to be on and off the field. I was happy for Texas fans. He's the first. Anytime you're the first, it's special. J.J. Watt will be in 4 years, and I'm writing a column right now for HoustonTexans.com about Watt. I talked to him today, and I've known Andre since the day he was drafted in 2003. He's the first star of the franchise, one of the greatest receivers in history, and seeing how happy he and his family and Texans fans and the McNair family that owns the franchise, how happy they were. It was just extra special to me. And I also have a story on the Texans website about going behind the scenes. I try to take the readers to places they would not be able to go, but would be interested in finding out about. So I had a blast. I wrote 3 stories overall. Now I'm writing one about Watt, who I believe will be a first ballot no-brainer in 2028. And so it's always special to go to Canton. I tell all fans, if you want to go 2 places in the NFL, go to Canton, Ohio on induction weekend, and go to Green Bay when it's in the winter, preferably December when you'll get snow. If you go to those two cathedrals, your life will be complete.
John, it's been 7 years since I've been there. That was the year they announced that the expansion of the campus there. How is that done yet, or what does they still have to do?
My wife, Carol, who you guys know, went with me, and it had been a few years. And when we were driving up to the Hall of Fame on Interstate 77, she's like, oh, my God. Used to be neighborhoods around there, and Hall of Fame bought them out. They've got all kind of structures they're building, like a hotel, like an amusement park, a water park. They have restaurants on there now, which I think is really smart, like a Shula's Steakhouse and others, because when people come out of the Hall of Fame or go in, you got the food right there for them. And they're going to have kind of a retirement home for Hall of Famers. And that'll be special. And so you would not recognize it. The stadium's been expanded. It's so much better than it was when I went there for the first time in 1985. And that class of 85, the only one that was better was the first one in 63, when they put all these great players from the start of the NFL in 21 to 63. But my class in 85 was Joe Namath, Pete Rozelle, O.J. Simpson, Roger Staubach, and a guy named Frank Gatsby from Cleveland. And one of the neatest stories in Pro Football Hall of Fame history, and there are many, it was when at the game on Saturday, the players were introduced to come out on the field at halftime. And when Roger Staubach walked out to midfield, he's wearing his Hall of Fame jacket, his slacks, and somebody tosses him a football, and he pops it a couple times, drops back. A kid along the right sideline who was a teenager ran a deep route down the sideline, and Staubach threw a perfect touchdown pass to him at the goal line. And that kid is famous in Canton. He now owns some business. And if you ask anybody there, who was the kid that caught Staubach's pass, they can tell you it just like I am. I just can't remember his name. And I've asked Staubach about it. I said, when did you come up with that idea? Did you practice? He said, no. I thought about it right before. And I asked the guy if he ever played, and he said, yeah. And I said, would you mind catching a pass from me? He said, sure. He said, just go deep. So the pass was perfect. Can you imagine if the kid had dropped it, but he didn't? And it's one of the most famous episodes in Pro Football Hall of Fame history.
John, the Gold Jacket dinner is the most unbelievable thing I've ever been to in my life. And
absolutely.
You can't even prepare for it, because you and I could tell everybody that, look, you're going to sit down, and then Rich Eisen, or whoever the MC is, it's Rich Eisen mostly.
Rich Eisen.
Yeah, is going to get up, and he's going to, he's going to be Rich Eisen. He's going to introduce some people, and you think, like, okay, I'm sure there's a couple folks here. Like, it's the Hall of Fame. And then they just introduce 100 Hall of Famers, and you just can't believe you're in the room with all of these people at the same time.
Yeah, Rich Eisen, who went to Michigan, made a bunch of jokes about Michigan and Ohio State. People were booing him, of course, and but it was fun. And then Roger Goodell makes a speech. The president of the Hall of Fame, Jim Porter, makes a speech. They asked Dan Fouts if he would introduce the more than 100 Hall of Famers. Some of them couldn't walk up the ramp to get to the stage to walk across it, so they sat at their tables. They put the spotlight on them. Then they got around to the reason they were there. And the Hall of Famers have not, that's when they put on their gold jackets for the first time. It's kind of for them the official thing about their official induction, even though their speech is the next day. And Andre Johnson, the way they do it, you come out of an exit. Now, used to, you came out with your presenter. In this case, that was Gary Kubiak, his coach. But the Hall came up with an idea, and I have no idea why, to have the Hall of Famers get another Hall of Famer to do it with them, which I didn't like as much. But Andre Johnson, University of Miami, and Miami, picked Michael Irvin, University of Miami and Miami. And so Andre comes out, and he goes through a gauntlet of gold-clad Hall of Famers, hugging him, patting him on the back, shaking hands, everybody taking videos and pictures. He goes up on the stage. The music is blaring. Strobe lights are shining. Michael Irvin and Roger Goodell helped him take off his coat, and they put that gold jacket on him for the first time, and he walks around the stage with everybody taking his picture and shooting video. Then his family came up on the stage to celebrate with him. I told him ahead of time, you will never, ever, under any circumstance, be able to duplicate that night because you just can't do it again. And it is special. And I wish the NFL would put the entire program on the NFL Network because it is mesmerizing.
John, I did notice, I hope you don't mind me asking that you were a little frustrated because the committee was not mentioned. I don't know if they ever were. By any of the inductees, which is, I know, a process with you guys, a lot of time that you put into that. Is that something that those who are running that event should make sure that an MC should say, or someone else?
No, if a Hall of Famer is going to do it, he's going to do it. This was the first time I could remember that not one inductee mentioned the selection committee that voted them into the Hall of Fame. Usually a couple or three will thank the committee. Sometimes they thank the person that presented them. And I was honored to be thanked by the Oilers. Jerry Jones thanked me, Eric Dickerson. And I'm just talking about for me, I'm talking about the selection committee. I think when you put as much time and effort into your presentations that I can't remember the last time we had an offer. And so I tweeted about it. My wife thought I shouldn't be doing that, but I talked about the committee and what a great job they did. And so my last one, I say congratulations on the class of 2024 and congratulations on the presenters who championed them for our committee.
John, the big NFL news right now is Brandon Ayuk and the possibility that he could get traded, and that there are teams that reportedly have framework in place if he agrees to an extension. This is a turn from where I think most people thought it was going to be, and very kind of un-49ers like. What do you think brought this about ultimately for them to change their minds?
I think that they think he's going to be a big problem. You know, usually you find a way to give a guy some more money if you're not going to give him a new contract. Keep in mind, they are loaded at skill positions. They drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Since Christian McCaffrey was traded there, they've run the ball more than any higher percentage of the time than any other team. They got Deebo Samuel. They got Brandon Ayuk, tight end George Kittle, running back Christian McCaffrey. So for a team that runs it as much as they do and drafted a receiver in the first round, are they going to give him a big contract? No, but I thought he would play this season, and then they would trade him and before his contract ran out. And but they think for them to do this, they think he's going to be a problem, that he's driven by the money. He should, if you go from a Super Bowl team, you should want to go to Cleveland. Browns have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Patriots going to be bad for years. But it looks like he just wants the money, more power to him. I'm for players getting everything they can. He's been a tremendous player, but I'm stunned. I thought they would find a way to get it worked out. Their all-pro left tackle, Trent Williams, he's holding out wanting adjustment on his salary. He's 36 years old. He lives here. We think he probably just doesn't want to go to training camp and be involved in preseason. He'll show up right before the season when the big checks start and with some kind of contract adjustment. And if they get Amari Cooper in a deal with Cleveland, that will help ease the pain. But I think he wants more money too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Ayuk, why are they trading? Are they worried about having to?
Well, it's like his attitude, like John said, his attitude might be bad now.
Yeah,
so
he's a dude, man.
Yeah,
I don't give up dudes when I get them as far as on a football roster. But again, they seem to be able to have a rotation of a lot of different positions that they just continue to do.
But John, they're one of the smartest front offices in the league right now.
They are, and that's why I thought they find a way to get it done. Miami's got 2 high-paid wide receivers and a quarterback. Philadelphia, 2 highly paid wide receivers and a quarterback. But if they thought he was not going to be a pain in the butt and a distraction, they wouldn't be talking to teams about trading him. I'm not so sure I wouldn't have given him some assurances. Of course, they don't care about assurances. They want to see results. I would rather have Ayuk than Deebo Samuels. Ayuk hadn't been in the league as long. They're close, but Ayuk doesn't get hit as a runner and a receiver like Deebo, who plays wide receiver and running back. If I had to pick one of the two, I would take Ayuk.
John, while you were talking, I was paying attention to what you were saying about Ayuk and Samuel. But there's a video, the Washington Commanders put up a video of the great Joe Gibbs being at practice today. And I'm sorry, I lost all concentration. I know your wife would like to know that. She's a huge Washington fan. You know, how amazing a job did he do with that franchise? If you don't mind me, just your thoughts about Joe Gibbs, who won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks.
3 different quarterbacks you would never mention in the same sentence as a Hall of Fame. To me, it's the greatest coaching job in the history of the NFL. You look at Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Don Shula, Dan Marino, Bob Greasy, both in the Hall of Fame, Vince Lombardi, Bart Starr. You know, they had great players, and those great players played for them, and a lot of them are in the Hall of Fame. No coach did what Joe Gibbs did, win 3 separate ones after the 83, 82 season, after the 87 season. Of course, they cheated during the strike, but that's beside the point. And then they won in 91, and there's never been a better accomplishment for a head coach.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Second Bears.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us, reflecting back and summarizing the Hall of Fame weekend. I went for the first time when Earl Campbell was inducted, I think in 1991, did my show from the steps of the Hall of Fame for a couple of days. That was awesome. Just an amazing experience.
Did you get to stay in Canton proper?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was there for probably more than a couple of nights. But, yeah, I think I arrived maybe on a Wednesday night, was there and came back, I think, on Sunday. So I was actually there a little bit longer than that. Yeah.
Q and I stayed in a town full of secrets.
You did?
I would say, like, if you go to Carrollton, Ohio, the first thing you're going to think is a town full of secrets.
Really?
Yeah, like one of those things that you, like, in a movie.
Yeah,
if you get like, if your car broke down and then you got to stay there for a while, and then you might, like have an affair with the mayor's daughter or something, and then find out that the mayor only got that job because he killed a guy. Those kind of things. That's why I felt about it.
Yep.
There's only like 3 restaurants.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. And it's with you and Q, I'm sure there was some late nights, except you guys were consuming something different than when Garrett's around.
There was only one of those, and that was the night that we wound up going to the airport because our flight was so early, and we went to LT's party, and it was so late that we just kind of kept on and then went to the airport. But Carrollton is not, I'll tell you, it was a very eye-opening experience in this. It's not a very diverse place, and I brought diversity there with Q.
And you changed their stats.
It was awkward for him and I and me too, but they were like, holy cow, like this is different.
Were there glances and
glances?
Quiet, awkward, quiet?
Oh yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
Did you walk out or did you stay there?
I mean, most places were pretty cool about it, but there was always like one guy who's
pretty cool about it. A black dude walking into it.
Was that the place where you were acting like his driver?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
No, I got so tired of it that I was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to just go to this McDonald's, which is one of the only things in town. And I said, these people have been so weird. I said, Q, I want you to sit in the back seat and I want you to look like you're yelling at me from the back seat about getting this food fast. And then I walked in, everybody watched me, and everybody's like, who is that in the back seat? Like, they thought he was somebody, like, super famous.
Like Denzel.
Yeah, they thought it was like Denzel. And I was like, listen, if I don't get these Egg McMuffins in a damn hurry, I'm going to get fired, and you don't want that. And then they're wondering, like, what is he doing here in Carrollton? Like, you don't even know. And hopefully they knows that we were driving a Kia Metro, which would not necessarily be the car that Denzel would be in. But he's a humble guy. Maybe he'll drive around the back of a Kia Metro.
Q helped set us up in Vegas.
Yeah.
couple of times, Super Bowl, and also that first day on the air with Big 12 Media Days. All right, when we come back, first of all, thank you for those of you that give us any kind of time on the growing subscribers that we have. The click like and subscribe button whenever you can. Spread the word if you don't mind. And I a lot of times I do mention the chat room, which is always constantly churning, but on 365 Sports YT on Twitter, a good chunk of you that watch us and follow us there too. This is 365 Sports in the Top 5.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5 as we tumble through the top 25 defenses, and I am just like Boy George in that I will tumble for you. I'll tumble for you. That's the only thing we have in common. That and that alone. But we are brought to you, of course, by 365. I'm going to start over. I'm going to skip the Boy George joke and just get into it. Welcome into Paul.
We had some flubs on the recording.
Oh, let's
earlier.
watch it.
No, I mean, like, it's just
do you
going to go and go.
Do you screw up here?
I mean, like, there's a couple. I don't know if we have the right.
I think it was about to work.
It was about to work? All right.
No, let's if it's a mistake, I want to see it.
Yeah.
I didn't think you made them.
Oh, I know. What? Okay, go ahead. All right.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5 as we tumble through the top 25 defenses, and I am just like Boy George in that I will tumble for you. I'll tumble for you. That's the only thing we have in common. That and that alone. But we are brought to you, of course, by 365. I'm going to start over. I'm going to skip the Boy George joke and just get into it. Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Use promo code 365 Sports. Today, we keep getting defensive with the top 25 defenses, numbers 20 through 16. Let's dive in, shall we? Number 20, Miami, Ohio. This is a team that can hold most P4 teams in check. Now, can they beat them? Probably not. But if you're playing Miami, Ohio, you better be ready to win a slugfest because their defense is swarming. It's tough. They get after you. They stop the run. And I predict seeing some tampered with players over the next season or two if they continue on this track defensively. Number 19, the Texas Longhorns. Stop, pump your brakes, everybody. Just wait. I know that most of you see this as a top 10 defense, maybe even a top 5 defense, and maybe it will be. But they lost a lot of good players, especially down the middle of that defense. When you talk about Murphy and Sweat, that is just a really tough thing to overcome. Now, while I think they've replaced them well, I don't think you can expect the same kind of dominance because of how good their defensive tackles were and their linebackers, that they do have to replace some of those guys as well. I think they'll still be good, and the arrow still pointed up. But I think early on, this is a defense that may not be as dominant as it was last year, particularly against the run, because my God, how could you be? They just shut everybody down that tried to run the ball at them. So I think that'll dip just a little bit. But remember, still a top 20 defense, and the separation in 1 to 25 when it comes to defenses is not as much as you may think. Number 18, Virginia Tech. The Hokies really do swarm you on defense. They get back to kind of that old school Beamer ball mentality of getting after the run, getting after the passer. This is a team on the rise under Brent Pry, and I expect them to kind of hover around here all year long. When you go and play Virginia Tech, you're going to have to be ready to win with less points than you normally score because they will hold you back a little bit, and I don't expect many shootouts when it comes to the Hokies and the Hokey Pokey this year. Number 17, Miami, Florida, the U. They've got their turnover chain. I don't even know if they use this anymore. They might have gotten rid of the props, which I'm not sure if it's still a thing.
I'm not sure if it's still a thing, but their defensive front, very improved. Their secondary, very improved. And we'll probably get a talk about their offense soon enough. with what they've done there. But this is a team defensively that should be able to hold a lot of people in check. And I expect them to be very, very, very good on that side of the ball this year because of what they've brought in and what they've kept there and what they've recruited and those guys coming up through the ranks and getting their opportunity to play for Mario Cristobal and the Canes. Number 16, Iowa State. This one I might have ranked higher based on my projection than they are, but I do think they're one of the top 30 defenses in the country, if not one of the top 25 defenses. I just think that this particular Matt Campbell team is going to be really salty on that side of the ball. They've got guys on every level who just like to scrap, and that's going to make them really, really tough to play, especially at home in Ames this year where, look, the theme of the state of Iowa is defense, and we'll get to the Hawkeyes in another top 5, but Iowa State should be tough on defense, tough to run against, tough to throw against, and tough to really get a lot of points on in the red zone because they will lock down on you there. That's going to do it for this edition of the Top 5. We're going to wrap it up tomorrow. Teams 15 through 11. This is the Top 5 on 365 Sports.
You were trying to be fancy there, and all of a sudden you had to count backwards.
I did.
15 to 9.
Yeah, 15 to 11. I almost said 15 to 10. That's what froze me up, and it wouldn't have been because we're going to go 10 to 6. We did that just last week, so I should have already been ready for it. But the stumbling over the Boy George joke, which did make it in, so
I had to get it in for you.
It made it in.
Get it in for you.
You know, it made it in spite of it. So
what? Boy George.
Yeah, I said I'll tumble for you. And that's the only thing Boy George and I have in common.
You tumbled with Boy George?
No, I said I will tumble. The song by Culture Club. It's I'll tumble for you.
I mean, that wouldn't be a surprise, right?
I'll tumble for you.
No.
I'll tumble for you.
Oh, stop. It was already a bad enough song. Bad enough song. Emery Winters working on 365 Sports tonight. Tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Jack McKenzie helping earlier today with what we had on the air with Texas Beef House. Their live auction, remember, starts tomorrow and runs through Thursday. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for more information. Use 365 Sports and get 10% off any order of $100 or more, and we appreciate you supporting them. Garrett Ross, great job weaving in and out. Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoke. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks to our great sponsors. Back again tomorrow, triple option at 1, this show at 3. Have a great night.